Good evening. I'd like to call the April 9th, 2019 regular USD 500 meeting to order, please. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Westphal, please call the roll.
Harold Brown.
Present.
Maxine Drew.
Present.
Janie Humphries.
Present.
Brenda Jones.
Present.
Wanda Brown McCabe.
Present.
Darlene Nguyen.
Present.
Stacy Hager.
Present.
Thank you, Ms. Westphal. I have a motion, please, to add item C, executive session, to the agenda.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded to add executive session to discuss non-elected personnel under the Kansas Open Meetings Act. Is there discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passed. Now I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passed. Good evening, Dr. Faust.
Good evening.
Communications.
How's everyone doing?
Great, thank you.
I am happy to see spring in the air. This week has been, a beneficial week. One, we have started our testing in our buildings, and large kudos goes to our students, our teachers, our custodians, our nutrition workers, our bus drivers, principals, all of those individuals, parents who have impact on student learning. So first I want to start out with saying thank you for the work that you're doing. We have had some great things that have taken place. I had an opportunity today to sit on a law panel. No, I'm not an attorney, just a pseudo when I need to be. We were at UMKC, and it was, we were talking about the anniversary of the Board of Topeka versus, no, I said that wrong, Brown versus Board of Topeka, which was actually a unique opportunity to sit down and we talked. One of the questions that were most striking to me is, what's different now than then, and how has it changed? And so what I will share in this one little part is that I think now we are able to cover up some of the issues that are underlying versus what was out there. And so not just for Kansas City, but for students of color just across America, we have the funds to sometimes make things look a certain way when now we're not educating all kids now. So we have to do a better job. And so, I'm always fighting for kids first and educating kids. And so that was our message, and reminding individuals that I know what it's like. I sit here coming from a little boy who is an African-American student, so I know what it's like to walk in the stores. I know what it's like to have someone watch you. And I tell them when I take off this superhero uniform, I'm an African-American male. When I put it on, they do give me just a little bit more respect. However, I know what it's like. So I say that to say that we do have to talk about injustices in our gender, those self thoughts that kind of bottleneck. And, I think we're on to a good thing. We've had several conversations with our student support department, and we have some things that we want to roll out next year, and I think we are on a great path of moving our entire district. And so I look forward to all of the things that we're going to be moving forward.
Great.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the PTA Council for a lovely evening last night. All of us were in attendance, and as we always emphasize, we need parents. We have to have parents to be successful, and we're seeing a large number tonight, and encourage you to not make this your last time. Dr. Faust, you mentioned Brown versus Board. I will get the information May 9th in Topeka. They will have an event commemorating, whatever word you choose to use, 65 years since the passage of that national decision. Of course, you know Brown v. Board was a combination of 5 lawsuits. So that I'll get information to the board. I mentioned it, this will be our second year. I and another representative sponsor a culturally relevant pedagogy project, which is a summer seminar for teachers. So with your permission, I'll give you the information to put on our website and to distribute to our schools. It's 7 through 12, and it is free. And the teachers, we like free. Well, though there's a little caveat there. If the teachers want graduate credit from Washburn, of course, that is a cost. But then, of course, CEUs are handled through the administration. So that is an intensive 4-week seminar on cultural relevant pedagogy. Update, I know you know that the legislature passed a school finance bill. It is, legal briefs are due April 15th. Oral briefs are due May 9th. The Supreme Court will then hopefully not take too long to decide whether it is adequate, equitable, set aside the lawsuits for until the next time, or whatever their ruling is, but it does at least secure funding for 286 school districts, $90 million additional dollars for the first year. So school districts can continue with the budgeting efforts, and that's what is usually touch and go, frantic around this time of the year. And finally, in preparation for our future budget discussions, there are a few documents that I'll share with Mr. Covington, and we need to share with ourselves. Just memos from the Department of Education about the budget process, as well as I think we need to get copies of the legislative post audits on special ed, dyslexia, task force. We've already received an update on our behavioral health pilot program, but they have future budget implications that the board needs to be familiar with. So again, thank you, PTA, and I'll have information to Ms. Westphal to distribute to us as we move forward. Thank you. Other board members, please. Go.
Oh, okay, I'll begin. I had the privilege of going to a graduation ceremony at Northwest Middle School for the program sponsored by Dr. Diane Clemens, the Future Leaders Outreach Network, and it's an excellent program. I know we have it at Northwest and at 2 other high schools, and I was really proud of her and what she's trying to do with our young people. I also had the opportunity to work with Bertram Carruthers Elementary School. They're having a career fair this Friday. So if you'd like to come by, I know they'll be excited to see you. If you'd like to volunteer, they'd be happy to have you to share with our young people, because we want to teach them about being entrepreneurs, having their own business, as well as possibly working for others. And I'm excited about our superintendent coming, as well as Ms. Tushman will be there and some others in our district. So we're really excited. And if you have the time, it's from 1:30 to 3:30. Please come and share with us, or encourage them, or say a prayer for them. Also, our Star Teacher Award was presented this past week, and we're excited about our young teachers. There is hope for our future for those of us who are former educators. We have a lot of people who are working hard, who care about our young people. In order for them to be successful, they have to have people who care. It's not enough for their family It has to be the child, the family, the community, the educational system. We all have to be on the same page. And it's nice to see young people excited about education, because that's what's going to make it work for us and for your children and all of our kids. Also attended the KCK Council of PTA, their presentation last night, and we're excited about the people who are involved in PTA. Things have changed, but we still have parents who care. Contrary to popular belief, they care. They're giving it their all. You're here right now. That said something. So we got to keep getting people involved so that we can make this work. We also had the opportunity to go to the KCK Chamber of Commerce, and then they were talking about building equitable cities, and that's important. Everybody deserves a fair chance. It's not enough for me to make it. These babies that are on that front row, they got to be successful too, because we all want, and it's what we're willing to do to get what we want. And we want them to do it the right way, to work hard, but they deserve a chance. That's where the difference comes in. They have to have an equal opportunity, and that's for everybody. So that was exciting. They gave us a tremendous book to read, and we're all reading. So learning is a lifelong process. And on behalf of Gear Up, I wanted to put this out for them. They're going to have a summer program for 7th and 8th graders in our school district. So please look it up. It's at every middle school in the district. It's free. We're always trying to find stuff for our kids to do. It's free. I'll keep saying that. It's free. It's free. It's free. It's free. Please look into it. And if you have 7th and 8th graders, involve them in those activities. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go next. Along with Ms. Page and several other board members, I did attend the Star Teacher Reception. I attended the Kansas City, Kansas Chamber of Commerce meeting. I also went to the graduation at Northwest for those students who are working with Dr. Clemens. But at one of the meetings here, I mentioned about my belief of learning a little bit more about the elementary schools. And on this week, I went to Eugene Ware Elementary School and met with the principal and several of the staff members, had an opportunity to sit in on the classes where our young people are really actively engaged in learning as high-level achievers. And I really want to thank the staff there for allowing me to come in. I also attended the PTA Council dinner on last evening. We're in the process of making some changes and doing the best we can, and I'm just grateful that I am able to be present and to support everything that's going on within the district.
Well, Miss Brenda and I have been really busy the last couple of weeks. We've been to high school soccer, baseball, softball, and track. It's amazing how our kids are so busy. We were fortunate to go to the high school choir festival to hear all of our choirs sing. In one place, it's really fun. I mean, we get to go to individual events, but when they all come together, it's really inspiring. The high school orchestra festival was held at Sumner. And then one day, we found out that Schlegel's staff was going to play a basketball game against their students. And that was the best basketball game we'd ever been to. Unfortunately, the faculty lost, but it was a good game to see the kids out there with the faculty. We're playing together. It's really inspiring. I got to set in on professional development at Harmon one week. Middle school soccer. Middle school had a choir festival. The one lady there, I don't remember what school she was from, but she had the voice of an angel. You would have sworn she was 25 or 30 years old, the way she controlled her voice. It was beautiful. We went to the meeting at William Allen White about the closing of Parker, and were able to visit with parents. Visited Northwest, Harmon, Central Middle, and Washington. The last 2 days, I've got to go to Stony Point North and TA Edison. And I almost pulled a Brenda Jones. I almost started crying. Last fall, I visited kindergarten classes with kids who maybe didn't know their letters. They could not read. I went back to those same classes yesterday and today, and those babies were reading. They could sit down there. They were sounding out the words that they didn't know. They were using the picture clues, but the gains that they made, in just 6-7 months are just tremendous. It's so exciting, and they got excited because they could read it by themselves. We went to the Grant musical, and then the chamber luncheon, which was really good. Governor Kelly was there. And the book they gave us, Building Equitable Cities, it's a really good read. The Star Teacher reception is always as fun. And the PTA Council dinner. And then today, this afternoon, they had Travis Kelsey at Northwest Middle School for an assembly. And we got our pictures taken with him. He was a really nice guy, and he really connected well with our students, talking about sometimes you have adversity and you have to overcome it, and you just have to keep plugging away, and how important it is when family and community round up behind you and help you get over your adversity. And I think that's it. But it's been just a wonderful start to a week to see those kids reading.
What she said.
Good evening, everyone. I had a very busy month as with the rest of my board members. The unique thing about it is that we always go to events, and it seems like we're always at the same events. I think sometimes I pull out different things to everything I attend. One thing is the Star Teacher reception. I really found it very powerful about our teachers and how sometimes the acts of teachers that happen every day, you don't see them until they're recognized. And so I would just applaud all those teachers who were recognized and those who were not, because there's only so many we can recognize, but they are doing a really great job with our students this year. The KCK Chamber of Commerce, I really enjoyed it because equity is different from equitable. Equity is different than equality. And when we think about equality, many people want equal things. Everything should be equal. You should have the same books. You should have the same curriculum. You should have the same. But the way how it's taught and the way students treat it or feel. Someone sent me an article this week explaining that teachers who say hello to students, just a simple hello or greeting to students act better in their classes and they respect teachers more. So one thing that I had a concern with last year is that my son's teacher would not look him in the face. I had a big problem with that because I said something happened to where he broke out and she did not see him. We had a very good conversation about the importance of her looking at every single student. And you would think, oh, that's common, you should look at your students. But sometimes people do not have that because there's something within them that possibly could be a bias or maybe not, but it's for us as parents to not overlook it. If we see something or we see that something may be going on, it is our responsibility to follow up with the principal. I want to remind parents who are here, the principal is the first step for if you feel something is going on. The next step is to reach out. If you're not getting a response at your school, reach out to the superintendent and his cabinet. And then to us as board members, I get a lot of people who contact me because they may not be getting a response. We as board members forward that information to Dr. Faust for him to handle, because as board members, we control the policy. But we also maybe see things or hear things that others in the community may not hear. So I want to encourage you parents, teachers and staff, if you see something, report it, say something. Another thing, we went to the PTA board last night. It was the PTA President celebration. It was so good to see many of our schools have the PTA. I'm a part of PTA, yay, and I've always been a part of PTA because it helps to be that voice of the parent. And it's so important that parents are on ground. The unique thing about my generation is we love technology. And the way how we gather people is with food, yay, and letting them know in different means other than paper, but to really use technology to our benefit. So I applaud all those presidents and principals who are supporting the PTA because they are really doing a lot of things. Northwest Middle School, It was great to see the Chiefs player there, but my highlight was a student. There was 2 students who came to the front to speak about their experience with Thrive. As you guys may remember, we said we approved for Thrive to go into our middle schools. The first person talked about how he lacked self-esteem, and through the program, he was able to speak out more, interact, and improve his grades. The second student came with such a heartfelt statement. He said he used to always get into fights. He had trouble with his parents. He was on his way to jail, to juvenile detention. But what changed him? The Thrive program instilled in him that he was valuable. They had us do a chant saying, like, I am worthy, you are worthy, we are worthy, or something of that nature. And it was just fun to see that energy, because students who don't have that self-esteem or self-worth or value for themselves or value for others, they may get into fights. But that was the highlight. Sure, I took a picture with the Chiefs player. I don't, but the student is really there. We know that we're impacting a child from going to jail, from going to prison, because we are making decisions on policies. So I want to encourage the board members who wasn't there, when we approve for these community organizations to come into our schools, they make a difference. Parents, when you identify those resources that we can use in our school, they make a difference. They help save our child's life. And one last thing that he said is that he sees himself going further and better for himself so that he does not have to go to prison. And I'm like, wow, his whole mindset changed from when the program went in there till now. So that was very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And before every meeting, I am supposed to proudly read the board norms and protocols. We agree to respect differences of opinions in making decisions for the district. We agree to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and the management of the board itself. We agree to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings. We agree to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district. We agree to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops as a reminder of how to conduct our meetings. And we agree to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. Thank you. Now to the part that you came for, among other things, the recognition and awards, Student of the Month recognition. We are proud to have 3, so I'll call the first, Malik Abdi, pre-K. Morse Early Childhood Center.
Hi, my name is Carol Chavez, and I'm one of Malik's teachers at Morse. I'm the special education teacher in the classroom, and, up on these. Oh, okay. I'm gonna go up there and stand so everyone can see how handsome you are.
We won't bite.
So, Malik does not have a special need, but he really makes a big difference to the students that do have special needs. And that's one of the main reasons that I nominated him. We have a student in the class that really was struggling and was needing someone to be his friend. And Malik said, "You're my best friend." And it was really special to that student, and he's made a lot of growth. And not just that student, but all the students in our classroom. If they don't have a snack, he one time went home and he brought 2 snacks so he could have a snack so his friend could have one too. He's kindergarten ready. He works really, really hard on all his academics and his social skills. And he's always focused, ready to help the teachers and everyone in the school. So we're just so proud of you, Malik.
Let's give Malik a big hand.
Wow.
So can Malik stand here until we get the other 2?
Malik.
Don't run, don't run. We got Ariana Bray to join you. come stand with Malik so he'll feel comfortable. Ariana Bray?
Yes.
5th grade.
My name is Phil Manuel. I'm her homeroom teacher at JFK Elementary. She's a bright and passionate student. She's been working hard in her academics, and it really shows. She excels in math and reading. She's also been a really great citizen in our school. Since the first day of school, she didn't show up until about 10 minutes late. Turns out she was helping in the cafeteria, and she's just been down there every morning helping out ever since. She also is a technology leader for us, for our technology teacher, Miss Danner. And she wrote a song for Fuel Up to Play 60 this year, which was really awesome. And then after hearing all you talk, I thought you might enjoy this. The boys weren't letting 2 girls, her and one other, play basketball today at recess. So she came up to me and she said, "Mr. Manuel, when do you sit out and when do you protest?" So I thought it was very awesome. And I just couldn't be more proud to have her in my class and in my life. So.
Thank you. And don't leave, Ariana, I'm sorry. Victoria Netherland, 8th grade. West Middle School.
Hello, my name is Christine Young, and Victoria is part of my advisory class, so I get to see her 2 times every day, so I'm pretty lucky. I would like to nominate Victoria Netherland as West Middle School Student of the Month. She is an 8th grade exceptional student. Victoria is extremely focused and has attended straight A luncheons her entire time she's been at West. What I admire about Victoria is that she's so even-tempered. I watch her peers try to drag her into something or say something to her to try to get her started. And you know what she does? She goes, huh. She does not bite. So I'm so proud of that about her. She's a very patient student, and I can truly say that she's very even-tempered. In classes, she can be counted on to assist other students and even lead when needed. When I ask Victoria to run an errand or do something for me, she is right there, and then she goes and comes directly back. She's very reliable and has a very sweet disposition. She is very respectful, not only to her peers, but to all adults in the building. Victoria displays the kind of integrity that we would all want from all of our students. All the other teachers in the building who have had Victoria as an 8th grade student and the teachers who've had her in 6th and 7th grade gave me similar feedback. She is awesome. She has been on the superintendent's honor roll for all the years she has been at West. She also is in honor choir, Voices of Change, and the Poetry Club. She's also a member of our volleyball and track team as well. When talking with Victoria about her future aspirations, she tells me she plans to go further in her education and pursue a degree or a career as an architect. So Victoria Netherland, our awesome 8th grader at West.
So we'll come and shake your hands, please, so don't move.
Which way?
Yeah, I mean, not for you, but the photographer.
And of course, congratulations to parents, too. We're ready for the community comment. Ms. West, are we? I'm sorry. Employee of the Month. Mr. Boykin, Reginald Boykin, Labor and Grounds Crew. I apologize. Yeah. Gone. Sure. Oh, please. You're going to have to do it sooner or later. Later.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tennille Nelson, and I'm a teacher at Whittier Elementary. I am here today because of how awesome Kiki is. I'm just going to go ahead and read the email that I sent to his boss. I wrote him and said, I'm emailing you to let you know how awesome Kiki is. On the morning of Friday, February 8th, my van was stuck sideways on a narrow, icy hill by Noble Prentice. I called my husband to come help, but he couldn't do much by himself, and I had to keep my foot on the brake because the van was slowly sliding down sideways as soon as I would let my foot off the brake. Just when we were thinking about calling for a tow truck, we saw a KCKPS truck drive by at the top of the hill. My husband and I waved the truck down. The driver saw us and immediately stopped and got out to see if he could help. After slipping and sliding on his way down to the van, actually crashing into my van as he slid down, Kiki and my husband were able to get to the back side of the van and slowly push the back end around to straighten me out onto the road so that I could slowly just let the van slide back down the hill. So if it was not for Kiki, I'm pretty sure that day we would have had to spend a lot of money on a tow truck, maybe not even have been able to have the tow truck help us because it was an icy, very, very icy hill. I don't even think they would have been able to help. So I'm super grateful and thankful for Kiki. He saved us money and he saved the day. So thank you very much.
You got to come now. Yes. Sure.
I would like to say something. If you don't mind, can I get a couple of my co-workers to stand?
Yeah.
These are the guys that when everybody else is at home, they at home sleep, y'all at home sleep, we out 1, 2 o'clock in the morning doing the parking lots and all that. So I accept this on their behalf too.
Thank you.
I can't do it without them. All right.
Dr. Faust, board members, Dr. Nguyen, how you guys doing? Appreciate you guys having us here tonight. Before we start, I do want to thank our student athletes being here. Let's give them a hand, guys, for being here. Student athletes, first of all, thank you for your patience. Appreciate you guys. Actually had them here at 4:15 so we can get organized, and they held to it and got here on time, and so that means we can cheat a little bit and not show up as early next time. But no, I appreciate them, and I appreciate the fact that they're able to be here and at least witness some of the process with board meetings and kind of see what's going on. And you never know, they could be sitting in your seats. So really appreciate that. Very long winter season. Weather played a big factor, and thank Dr. Faust for his guidance on a few things. But kids had a great winter, and with that, I'm here to honor the Kansas City Atchison League recognition. We'll start with boys basketball. There was actually a three-way tie this year with league for boys basketball. So I did try to talk to Mr. Clement to see if we can get a gym set up, and maybe we can try to do a three-way thing, but it's not working. But no, we had a three-way tie, and we are going to honor those that are here this evening. So coming up first, the Washington Wildcats. Here you go. Washington finished with a 14-8 overall record, finished 8-2 in KCAL, and made it to the sub-state championship round of the Class 5A state tournament. Here with us this evening, Alton Easley, Kyron Angelo, Devon Brown, Terry Alexander, and coaches Eric King, Lonnie Jackson, and Benjamin Wright. Let's give them a hand, guys. F.O. Schlegel High School boys were also in that tie, but they aren't here this evening, so we'll go ahead and move forward. The J.C. Harmon Hawks were the third team as part of that tie there. Harmon finished with an 18-4 overall record, again, tied in KCAL, and they also placed seventh in the Class 5A state tournament. I know, very good. Very exciting game that we watched, and came up short, but this team is very young and very excited about what they have in store for next year. With us this evening, Marcus Wilbert, Santos Ruiz, Marlon Bowens, Lionel Lane, Javon Noel, and coaches Dave Gonzalez and Bruce Brooks. Also in our sports, we honor our first team, all league for the various sports. For boys basketball this evening, we actually have three that are present on that team. Lionel Lane from Harmon and Alton Easley from Washington. Washington, and Mike Carson from Harmon. Okay, let's give them a hand. And Lionel, we'll keep getting laps in here, buddy. Lionel was actually our player of the year this year, voted on by the coaches. He's only a sophomore and a lot of energy left in the tank, so let's give it up for Lionel. Very good. Our newcomer of the year comes from Washington High School, Mr. Alton Easley, Jr. And our defensive player of the year for boys basketball, Marcus Wilbert, J.C. Harmon. And our final award for the boys, our Coach of the Year. And I know Coach Gonzalez, he's really put a lot of time in. And like I said, team is young. And, you know, there's few coaches that can take young teams and really get, you know, the most output out of them. And he's really done that over the years. So our KCAL Coach of the Year, boys basketball, David Gonzalez. All right. We'll move on to girls basketball. So, again, Schlegel, girls basketball, they were league champs, but aren't present tonight. But I will go ahead and skip to KCAL first team and KCAL defensive player of the year. She is present, okay, and plays very good defense and definitely an asset on anyone's team. So let's give it up for Miss Jordan Rowe from Sumner Academy. As many of our students, you know, they have a lot of spring events they're in and inside and outside the district, so we do appreciate those students that are present with us this evening. On to wrestling, okay? Our league wrestling champs come from J.C. Harmon. Let's give them a hand. So in wrestling, there's 14 weight classes, and Harmon came away with 6 of those weight classes as far as league titles. So with us this evening, we have Adrian Ortiz, Brandon Ladd, Diana Cordova Duran, Angel Gallardo, Abraham Morales, and Julian Pacheco, and Coach Michael Lewis and Coach Zach Davies. Let's give them a hand, please. So with wrestling, we do have our first team wrestlers here with us this evening. From Harmon, Adrian Ortiz won at 132, Brandon Ladd at 138, Abraham Morales at 220. You guys come on up and come on through again. And also with us this evening, we have some wrestlers that weren't all league but did qualify for state, okay? And we have with us Angel Gallardo and Julian Pacheco from Harmon. Give them a hand. So I did hear the phrase "girl power" as you guys were shaking hands up there. So one of the things with wrestling in the state now, so it still is a mixed sport, but there's been some conversations about having a girls wrestling event or program. But one of the things I know, some of our wrestlers participated in a pseudo state-like tournament in McPherson, Kansas, and we had a lot of our girls wrestlers do very well there. So yes, definitely give them a hand. And our Coach of the Year, there was actually a tie, but one of them is present this evening from J.C. Harmon, Mr. Zach Davies. No problem. Okay. And then our final group is our bowling, okay? So yes, we do have bowlers, all right? But for league, for boys bowling, Sumner Academy was actually our league bowling champ, so let's give them a hand. So I'll say a little bit and then I'll add some more kudos and then I'll send them through and you guys will be able to shake hands at the last minute there. But boys bowling finished 172 pins above their second place competitor and competed very hard. Mr. Andy Lau, which is the bowler of the year for boys, had the high game and the high series. So kudos on that point. And also Coach Jack Kilgore, he was actually the Coach of the Year for bowling. Let me also state, so in addition to that, we actually had 2 additional bowlers that actually participated in the state tournament this year. Actually 3, I'm sorry, from Sumner Academy, Sadia Soriano, from Schlegel, Mai Kao Yang, and from Washington, Makai Brenning. Okay, let's give all them a hand. Thanks, David. All right, appreciate it. All right, appreciate you guys. Also with us this evening, Washington's bowling coach, Dennis Bobbitt, and Schlegel's bowling coach, Eric Fox. Let's give them a big hand. Appreciate it. Again, our students work very hard on the field, and these same students do a very good job in the classroom as well, and that's something that we want to keep continuing, that balance as a student athlete, and really appreciate you guys' efforts on that. Mm-hmm. So again, I appreciate you guys. One final thing I just wanted to say. So on our district athletic Twitter account, KCKPS Athletics, for those that would like to follow, we had a little March Madness event happening. So in the district since 1969, 13 teams have won the state championship from the district. So we actually took those teams and we ranked them and had a little bracket play, and it actually finished up today. In the championship round, it was the 1970 Wyandotte Bulldogs versus the 1969 Sumner Spartans. Okay, and the winner of the whole thing was the 1969 Sumner Spartans. It was voted on by the Twitterverse, so they did their thing. We did have a tie for the championship, and the district AD had to break the tie with a coin flip. So. Oh, y'all don't like the coin flip? Is it? Okay. Well, no, appreciate you guys, and thank you.
He was a junior that year.
Exactly.
They went.
Hey, Greg. Hey, that was the 70 Bulldogs. You hear that?
Yeah.
Oh, baby,
We couldn't wait.
Are you 70?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, some dynamite team.
We have our board members reminiscing up here back in the day.
Back in the day.
All right, I think I'm on agenda now, right? Ms. Westphal, do we have anyone making community comment?
Judy's not here.
Okay,
69.
thank you. Reports of the superintendent.
No? Library update?
Library update.
That's not, I'm sorry. I am just moving through the agenda, aren't I?
Yes.
Public library update. Apologize, Ms. Levers. She said, go ahead. Skip me anytime. No, you didn't say that.
Good evening, Dr. Nguyen.
Good evening.
Board.
Good
Dr.
evening.
Faust.
Good evening.
Okay, we'll be bringing you the April board report from the public library. Again, our mission, connecting members of a dynamic community with information, tools, resources, and welcoming spaces to enrich their lives. We have a vision, leading the way in reading, information, and culture. And of course, we have 5 values. March circulation, we circulated 91,762 items. 35% of those circulation items was circulated through the West Wyandotte Library. We circulated 32,374 items at that branch. And you can see through the steps the rest of the branches. We've collaborated with the Prairie Fire Museum in Johnson County, and they've given us museum passes that we could check out to not students but patrons in good standing for free, and that each pass allows a family of 4 to visit the museum. And we had 8 families check out this past March, and everybody was just excited. You know, we've put it on Twitter, we've put it on Facebook, and so people are starting in by word of mouth that they could utilize that passes as well. The circulation type or by type, obviously our AV materials are the number one checkout, but the print is not far behind. As you can see, 43.03% is the AV, and that's DVD, CDs, etc. And the print is 40.40% in circulation. We have outreach in March, and we've got programs in-house as well as programs for outreach. Our in-house program, as you can see again, West had 89 programs that they offered last month, and they had 1,597 people attending. They were the lead. And our outreach, again, Schlegel was closely, that's Mr. and Mrs. Ethel Schlegel, was closely behind West. West had 34 outreaches, and they had 1,141 people attend the outreach programs. Our e-community library, we had 11,291 items checked out on our e-community. 44% of that was Hoopla, and of course 37% was Tumble Books. The amount of sessions, database sessions that was searched was 1,489 sessions, and the main database that was checked out, or at least searched, was our news bank. That's the lead, and the rest you can see right there. Again, our adult winter reading ran from January 1st through February 28th. We had 1,130 adults registered, and only 700 really completed it. But the mere fact that we had 1,130 adults for the first time, that was fantastic. And it gives you by location. West Wyandotte, again, we had 358 adults register, and 272 of those completed, and those are the totals. Our e-community push, we really pushed through the end of last month, our winter program, and you could see our statistics comparison to 17-18 and 18-19. We had 173% increase on e-card sign-up. The year before, we had 187 people, and this past winter, we had 530 people just on e-community. And of course, our website traffic, you can see it's kind of stagnant, all positive, all increases. Then we have the traffic coming from our social media. Found out that our Facebook went through the roof. We had 4,500% increase just on Facebook, and that is our lead communicator. We have a decrease in Twitter and YouTube. It's not as it used to be the lead, but Facebook is really, so that's the main source that we use to communicate with our patrons. The e-content usage was our Access 360 checkouts was a decrease, but we had increases with Hoopla, Canopy, Flipster, and of course, eProxy as well. And we have our main author event coming up on Saturday, and that's our annual author event. We will have a conversation with Kiki Swinson and Tiffany Warren, and we would like to invite you to a reception. That will be 1 to 2 at the Reardon Center, and then the conversation will start at 2:30, and you're all welcome. Thank you.
Before you sit down, Ms. Levers, what is it normal to have, or what would it take to have reciprocal agreements between our public library and Kansas, Missouri Public Library? Does that ever happen?
We do.
We have it already?
Yeah, it's actually all the local, or shall I say metro-wide libraries. It's Mid-Continent, KCPL, Johnson County, there's another one.
Maybe Independence, do they have a library?
No, Mid-Continent is the one
Right.
that really serves them. They have 30 libraries, the whole system. But yeah, we're all in one. I mean, we exchange, and we do a lot of things together. So.
Is that publicized? Or, no, not is that. How do we publicize it? Maybe that.
Oh,
better.
it's been for years. If for instance, if you need an item and it's not in our, and you go on our collection, it's not there, you just call, or in the library, just ask a librarian, you need whatever title you're looking for. It may not be in our catalog.
Right.
Immediately, it gets sent out, and the first library that picks it up will send it.
Right, interlibrary alone is,
Yes.
I understood, but
Yeah.
I'm saying
You mean
going
checking-
to each of those, how's that publicized, that if I were to have my library card and I go to the main library, Kansas, Missouri?
Oh, you cannot check out with your card. You
Okay.
cannot check out with KCKH card. A lot of areas, they want to combine and do a catalog that interfaces all 5 urban libraries. But it's cost prohibitive. We've tried it 3 times over the last 15 years. They're still working on it, but we wanted a Metro card. The only card we have is a Kansas State card. You can go in Kansas and check.
Okay.
Yeah, but still, we can borrow from them. But
Right,
we can't
interlibrary
use-
loans
Yeah,
expected,
yeah,
right.
yeah, we can.
But my public library card would get me access to any public library in the state of Kansas?
Yes.
Check-out privileges?
Check out privileges. Yeah.
Perfect.
I got a quick question for you, Carol.
Sure.
What is the relationship between circulation by location and circulation by type?
The circulation by location is whatever they've checked out the month of March, whether it's books, DVDs, whatever. That's by type. Then it breaks it down. Is it a DVD? Is it a print book? Is it a CD, a book on tape, or online?
Okay.
So it breaks it up by library and what type. The first total that it gave you, I think it was 91,000. That's everything that has been checked out throughout the system, whether it's print or AV.
Okay.
The other section is, then it breaks it down,
Okay.
by type. In other words, AV or print books.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. We love libraries. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we're at the reports of the superintendent.
So as David makes his way to the podium, I would ask that this Kansas City Board of Education accepted as an informational item a report on student assessment projections based on testing from across the school year, as submitted by David Rand, Director of Educational Research and Assessment, and as recommended by myself, Charlesville Schools Superintendent. Before David starts, I want you to remember that a level 3 is what the state deems as proficient. A 1 or 2 is still at the non-proficient level, and a level 4 is considered
1 and
college
2,
and
you say?
Three
career
is
ready.
proficient.
3 is proficient.
Okay.
1 and 2, you'll note that you'll see a lot of our students where they're falling in a 1 and a 2 on but a 3 is where the state states that proficiency, and a level 4 is college and career ready.
Thank you, Madam President, Dr. Faust, Board. Appreciate your time this evening. I'm going to share with you some projections for our best projection of how our students will perform on the state assessment that they are currently taking. Just to give you a little bit of background, the state provides us with 3 separate interim tests across the school year that can be used to predict performance on the state assessment. This is the second year that they have had the interims. This is the first year that it's actually operational, where they're giving a state assessment projection. And we participated in all 3 of those interims this year. Each of those interims is supposed to cover about 50% of the content for the spring summative state assessment. So by the time the students have taken all 3 of those interim assessments, they will have been exposed to the full range of skills that will be measured on the state assessment, summative assessment that they are currently taking. Our windows were October, about mid-October, mid-December, and late February. The state was not able to provide interims in some areas. For instance, grade 8 did not have an interim in February, so they only had October and December. And grade 10 did not have any interims, unfortunately, so we weren't able to get projections for grade 10 math. Part of the reason for that is an update with the state standards. They've removed some items from this year's summative. Hopefully, the 8th grade will have its 3rd, and there will be some grade 10 math next year for us to use. The predictive interims, I can say, in using that data and looking at kind of some other student data, I feel pretty comfortable about projecting the percentage of students that will score at levels 3 or higher. As Dr. Faust mentioned, that's the level for proficiency or above. The predictive interims, you can use them to try to project the percentage of kids that fall within each performance level. So the percent that are in 1, the percent that are in 2, so forth. But I'm a lot less confident in those predictions. I feel the test has a tough time really delineating between a level 1 and a level 2. So as we go through this report, I'm pretty much just going to be referencing the levels 3 and higher. You have all the data here that you can look at, and obviously I'm happy to take any questions at the end. So just a reminder, our state assessment is in grades 3 through 8, 10, and 11. 3 through 8 and 10 take English language arts and mathematics. Grades 5, 8, and 11th will also take science. Grade 11 also takes social studies every other year. This is an off year for social studies, so only science this year for 11th grade. Unfortunately, the predictives are only available in ELA and math, so we did not have predictives in science. That's why you're not going to see any of that data. So what you're seeing here is just going to be English language arts and math. So what you're seeing here are overall district totals based on the 3 interims. For each graph that you see, the very first bar is going to represent the actual percentage of students that were considered levels 3 or above last spring based off the summative assessment from 2018. And then the next 3 bars will represent the projections based on the results from each of the interims. So it'll go last spring summative, then October, December, then February. While we're looking at the comparison across time, I think it's important to keep in mind that the way that this is structured, it isn't really intended to measure growth. And so as you're looking across, even if you see some numbers increase or decrease, that isn't necessarily something that we can look at and feel statistically confident that that is an indicator of growth. It's just because that's the nature of the test. When the state designed it, they did not design it to measure growth across time. However, you can still, especially with reporting out at the district level, there's enough students that if you look at 3 and up and below 3, still feel pretty confident about that. But again, it struggles to, I think, delineate between levels 1 and 2. So starting with the first set of graphs, our district totals, what you'll see is that on the left, that's our English language arts. Our levels 3 and 4 are going to be the gray and the yellow bars at the top. Our levels 1 and 2 are going to be at the orange and the blue below. And again, I'm pretty much just going to be referencing the gray and the yellow, those students scoring at 3 and above. If we look at our overall district totals in ELA as a district, we are at 14% of students at level 3 or above last school year. Across the interims, we have 18.5%, 17.8%, and 15.8%. When I took that, as well as looking at some other of our student data, basically I'm projecting us to be in the 17 to 19% range. With any of these predictions, even at the district level, you're going to have some error in measurement, even if they're really good predictions of 2-3% or more. So kind of want to give you a range of where we think it's going to end up. So if we end up kind of in the 17 to 19 range, that has us making growth of about 3 to 5% in the percentage of students scoring at levels 3 or higher in ELA. If you look at math, last spring we were at 12.1% as a district. Across each of the interims, we went 16.4, 13.9, and 17.2. When combining that with, again, other data that we look at, projecting math to come in around 13 to 15%. Kind of forecasting maybe a growth of 1 or 2%, hopefully 3 or more, but I'm expecting more in the 1 or 2% range for math overall as a district. And so that's going to be all the students in grades 3 through 8 and 10 combined. So good news is the data looks like the percentage of kids scoring proficient should go up, but not as much as we would like it to, nor as much as it needs to get to where we need to be. Next, what I'll do is I will run through these same data by grade level and then by subgroup so that you can have all that information. First, we're going to look at grade 3. Last spring, grade 3 was at 14.2%. The 3 predictors for this year have them at 19.8, 21, and 15.4. Overall, we're projecting grade 3 and ELA to fall in the 19 to 21% range, which would be an increase of about 5 or 6%. Hopefully 7 or more, but looking at maybe 5 or 6% growth at grade 3 in ELA. In math, 20.6% of students were at levels 3 or higher proficient last school year in spring. This year's interims went 16.4%, 13.9, and 17.2. Or I'm sorry, that is 35.9, 30.2, and 38. And overall, we're projecting grade 3 to come in around 29 to 31%. Which would be a really, really large gain. I even regressed a bit in that prediction, and it's still showing some really good gains at grade 3, and grade 3 in math, and really, really hope those come to pass, because that would be some really, really good growth. Moving on to grade 4, and let me back up. When I say I regress my predictions, basically I look at as many data points as possible. I take the lowest and I take the highest. I don't expect it to come out at the lowest, and I don't expect it to come out at the highest. And so what I do is I combine all those data points to kind of try to regress it so it'll fall somewhere in between the extremes. And I feel more confident that it would fall in the middle of that range. And so when I say regress the predictions, it basically means I'm not taking the absolute lowest, I'm not taking the absolute highest, I'm trying to find something in the middle that's basically a triangulation of all the data.
Let me ask you to drill down a little bit.
Yes.
And I'm sure you have these raw numbers someplace. Just to give us a feel of your total, what's your total population, and then of third graders, and then on these days of that interim, what was our population taking?
So we probably have about 1,650 third grade kids. That's just a guesstimation. I might be off by 50 or 100. And our participation on the interims was probably 97%. So virtually all of elementary and all of middle school, our high schools took a minute to get kind of into the swing of things on the first one, but had really good participation on the second and the third. But if you're looking at elementary and middle, yeah, mostly every school, 97, 98% participation across all grade levels and all subgroups.
Great, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. All right, at grade 4, last spring, in ELA, we were at 19.5%. If you look at our 3 interims from this school year, we were at 25.4, 25.7, and 20.8. We are projecting the overall totals to fall in the 23 to 25% range, so hopefully growth of around 4 or 5% at grade 4 in ELA. In math, last spring, we were at 12.4%. This year, we are at 15.6 on the first interim, 11.8 on the second, and 12.9 on the third. At grade 4 math, we're projecting something in the 11 to 13 range, which would be looking at a slight decrease or basically remaining flat. So that's our first area where we're not projecting growth, is in 4th grade math. In grade 5, last spring as a district we were at 19.8%. The interims this year came in at 22.2, 26.3, and 22.5. Overall, we're projecting an overall result in the 22 to 24% range of students scoring at levels 3 or higher, which would be a gain of 2-3%, hopefully 4 or more, but something probably more in the 2 to 3% range. In math at grade 5, we were at 11% last spring. The interims from this year have us at 11.8, 11.2, and 16.9. Overall, we're projecting 5th grade to come in the 11 to 13% range, which would basically be remaining flat or a 1 to 2% gain. So not a lot of movement in grade 5 math. At grade 6, last spring, we were at 11.6% proficient. This year on the interims, we saw 18.7 in October, 12.5 in December, and 14.8 in February. Overall, we're projecting the final results from this spring to be in the 14 to 16% range at level 3 or higher, which would be a gain of 2 to 3 points, hopefully 4 or more, but probably more in the 2 to 3 range. In math at grade 6, we were at 11.4% last spring. This year on the interims, we were at 14.7, 15.6, and 10.7 in February. Overall, we're projecting grade 6 to come in the 11 to 13% range. Similar to grade 5 and grade 4 math, we're projecting grade 6 math to remain steady or show a slight increase of maybe 1 or 2%. And this kind of illustrates why, and I just want to take a second to talk about why I'm not so comfortable with saying this percentage of kids are going to be in level 1 and this percent are going to be in level 2. If you look at the math graphs, you see the movement across the year. While I would really, really like us to go from 52% of kids at level 1 to 3% of kids at level 1, that's not happening. Not only is that not happening, if you made that happen, you would have the state here asking a lot of people a lot of questions of how we moved half of our kids that much so quickly. In looking at all that, I feel fairly confident that we are going to move students out of level 1 at a greater rate than we're adding them to level 3. And so while overall as a district, kind of looking at maybe 4% growth in ELA, maybe 1% growth in math, really, really expecting more like 5 to 7%, hopefully more, closer to 10%, get out of that level 1. Because that is incredibly important as well, because we got to get our kids basically able to access grade level content. And if you're performing at a level 1, the chances are you're not going to be able to access and perform well on grade level content. So just wanted to kind of point out why I prefer just to talk about levels 3 and up and 2 and below. We can definitely look at each level, but depending on the test, the variance that I see just makes me question how accurate that will end up being. In grade 7, last spring, we were at 11.6%. The interims from across this year are at 16.4, 14.4, and 16.8. We are projecting an overall total in the 14 to 16% range at levels 3 and up, which would be looking at gains of maybe 3.5%, hopefully 4 or more, but probably something more in the 2 to 3.5% range. In math, last spring we were at 10.4% of students at levels 3 and higher. The interims from this year came in at 9.6, 5.9, and 6.3. And we are projecting grade 7 to come in between 7 and 9%, which would be a decrease from last year. I am very hopeful that that is not the case, but I can't change those numbers. I do those the exact same as the ones going up. So we are projecting a drop in grade 7 math. In grade 8, in spring, we had 8.3% of our students proficient in ELA. The interims from this year were 13.1, 11.6, and 7.9. Overall, we're projecting them to end up in the 8 to 10% range, which would basically be right where they were last spring, or a slight gain of maybe 1%. In mathematics, last spring we were at 7.9%. We only had 2 interims in math this year. They were 11.6 and 8.2. Overall, we're projecting grade 8 to come in at the 7 to 9% range. So again, not really looking at any growth in grade 8 math, most likely remaining pretty much steady. In grade 10, in English Language Arts, last spring we were at 11.5%. This year we were at 9.4, 9.1, and 9.6. We're projecting a range at high school in the 9 to 11% range, which would be a drop of about 1.5 to 2% if you look at the mid-range. So we are projecting a drop in 10th grade ELA. In math, we don't have predictions, but I just wanted to show you where we were last spring. Last year in spring, we were at 9.6% in math. Just from looking at the other grade levels, I don't see anything that would lead me to believe that there would be a large gain at grade 10. But I am certainly hopeful that there will be. All right, if we start looking at our subgroups, first we have females. Last spring, they were at 16.3%. This year on the interims, they're at 21.1, 20.5, and 18.2. We're projecting that to fall in the 20 to 22% range, looking at growth of maybe about 5% in the number or the percentage of students scoring at levels 3 and higher. In mathematics, last spring we were at 11.6. This year we're showing 16.7, 14.4, and 15.4. Overall, we're projecting that to be in kind of the 13 to 15% range, which would be growth of maybe 2.5%, hopefully 3.5 or 4 or more, but most likely more around 2%. Among males, last spring in English Language Arts, we're at 11.8% of students at levels 3 or higher. The interims from this year, 16, 15.2, and 13.6. Overall, we're projecting males to come in at 15 to 17%, which would be about a 4% gain. Hopefully 5 or more, but more likely in the 3 to 4% range for growth. In math, 12.4% of students, male students, were levels 3 or higher last spring. This year on the interims went 16.5, 13.5, and 18.8. Overall, we are projecting them to be in the 13 to 15% range. So really not really showing much growth, hopefully 1% or more, but really not looking at a lot of movement among male students in math. Asian students, 15.6% last spring. On the projections from this year, we have 20.5, 20.5, and 16.7. We are projecting that group to end up in the 19 to 21% range, which would mean growth of around 4.5%. Would really like it to be 5 or 6 or higher, but probably something more in the 4.5% range would be reasonable based on the projections. In math, we're at 15.5 last spring. The interims from this year were 22.7, 16.8, and 22. Overall, we're projecting 17 to 19% of students scoring at levels 3 or higher, which would represent growth of about 3.5%. Hopefully 4, 4.5 or more, but 3.5 would be more reasonable based on the data. Among black students, last spring, 9.9% were at levels 3 or higher in ELA. The projections from this year went 14.2, 13.7, 12.6. Overall, we're projecting them to fall in the 13 to 15% range, which would be growth of around 4%. And again, in an optimal situation, we'd have 5 or higher, but something more in the 4% range is what I'm projecting. In math, 7.2% of students were proficient last spring. On the interims this year, went 11%, 9.4, and 11.9. We are projecting an overall total in math of 9 to 11% among black students, which would be growth of around 3%. Ideally, we would have 4 or more, but 3% is what we are projecting. Among Hispanic students, 14.1% were proficient last spring. This year on the interims, it went 18.3, 17.3, and 15.4. We're projecting that group to fall in the 17 to 19% range, which would be growth of around 4%, 3 to 4%. Optimal situation, we'd have 5 or more, but something in the 3 to 4% range is what we are projecting. In mathematics, last spring we were at 12.9%. The interims from this year, 17, 14.5, and 17.6. Overall, we're projecting 14 to 16%, which would be growth of about 1 to 2%. Hopefully 3 or more, but 1 or 2% is kind of what we're looking at. Next, we have what we label our other ethnicity subgroup. This includes our American Indian students, our Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander students, multiracial students, and the students who did not declare or chose not to share their ethnicity. And so we have them all in one group because I didn't want to leave anybody out. Typically, other than in the multiracial group, at the school level, there aren't ever really enough students to report out data. And so a lot of times we'll group them because we want to make sure we don't leave anybody out. Because if you just add up the others and it doesn't add up to the totals, you're like, where'd everybody else go? So we include them in a group. If you would like to see each group broken out, we can absolutely do that for you if you would like. Among this group of students, 14.8% were proficient or at level 3 or higher last spring. This year on the interims, we saw 19.1, 19.8, and 18.1, projecting something in the 17 to 19% range, which would be growth of around 2 to 3%. Would like to see 4 or higher, but 2 to 3% is more likely. In math, 11.2% of students were at levels 3 or higher last spring. Interims from this year, 18.4, 14.4, 17.5. Overall, we're projecting them to be in the 14 to 16% range, which would be growth of about 3 to 4%. Again, hope for 5 or more, but something in the 3 to 4% range is what we're seeing currently based on the data. Among white students, 24.7% were at levels 3 or higher last spring. The interims from this year came in at 28.3, 28.2, and 25.2. Overall, we're projecting in the 27 to 29% range, which would be gains of maybe 2 to 3%. Hoping for 4 or more, but 2 to 3% is the more likely range. In math, 19.7% of students were in levels 3 or higher last spring. This year on the interims, it was 23.8, 21.2, and 25.4. We're projecting that final total among white students to fall between 21 and 23%, which would show a small gain of 1 to 2%. Again, certainly hope for more, but small gains is what we're seeing based on the data that we have. Among ELL students in English Language Arts, 6.2% were proficient, levels 3 or higher last spring. This year on the interims, it was 8.1, 8.1, and 6.6. We are projecting those students to fall in the 7 to 9% range, which would be looking at gains of maybe 1 to 2%. Hopefully 3 or more, but 1 to 2% is what we are seeing. In math, 7.6% were at levels 3 or higher last spring. This year on the interims, it was 10.2, 9.1, and 13.5. We're projecting 9 to 11% in math, which would be a gain of maybe 1.5, 2.5%. Hopefully 3.5, 4 or higher, but probably 1.5 to 2.5% gains among English language learners. Among free reduced lunch students, last spring in ELA, 12.6% were at levels 3 or higher. The predictors from this year came in at 17.7, 16.8, and 14.7. 19.7, nope, 14.7, yep. 14.7, we're projecting them in the 16 to 18% range, which would be gains of maybe 4%, 4 to 4.5%. Hopefully more again, but that is what we are showing in ELA. In math, 10.9% of students were at levels 3 or higher last spring. The predictors from this year were 16.2, 13.8, 16.9. Overall, for a group, we're projecting them to come in at around 13 to 15%, which would be a gain of 2 or 3% overall in the percent of students that are proficient. Again, we'd like to see more, but that is what we are currently showing. Among our special education students, 12.3% were at levels 3 or higher last spring. The predictors from this year came in at 11.8, 11.2, and 11.2. This is sometimes a tough subgroup to project because we have some students that take the alternate assessment, and it's hard to project how those students will do. But in general, we have them coming in at 11 to 13%, which is basically no gain among those students. In math, they were at 11.1% last spring. This year on the projections, we have them at 12.5, 10.7, and 13.7. Overall, projecting something in the 11 to 13% range, which would be a gain of maybe 1%. Would like to see 2 or more, but right now, showing 1%. So after all that, I can't see how all those fine folks looked at the agenda and got up and left. But that is the conclusion of the slides that I have for now. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
When will you have the summative assessment scores that the kids are taking now?
We should have those by mid-May.
By mid-May. So when you come back to us, we'll have another bar graph, which we can more accurately compare to the spring of 2018.
Yes.
Okay. And what I noticed going through here, we don't have a lot. We're not up at the top where we want to be. But I've noticed that a lot more are in the orange and less in the blue. So to me, that is a good sign.
Yeah, I am encouraged. I'm cautiously optimistic just because the way that just the statistics of the test look. I don't know that I trust those gains, especially what these are saying. But again, I still expect to see students moving out of level 1 into that level 2, absolutely. At the minimum, I would expect 5% of students to move from level 1 to level 2, and I'm really hoping for something more in the 7 to 10% range.
And we have to get to level 2 before we can get to level 3.
Yes, yeah. It's a progression, and it's not just the test. It's what our teachers are teaching our students and how they're monitoring their progress and really digging into those standards.
And I like the bar graphs, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. I had some other graphs, but Dr. Faust liked these better, so I cannot take full credit for those.
Other questions, comments?
Previously, we had brought up the inquiry about parents being notified about testing. Has anything been done with that?
I believe the principals were told that they should absolutely be notifying their parents.
When we have a winter outage, everybody knows about it. When we have something going on with the district, everyone knows about it. I, as a parent, I knew about it because I asked, but I didn't get any alerts. It's not on our website, not on our Facebook page. And I think that the more parents know, the better. Again, put them to bed early. These are some tips that will help your child be alert and ready for testing. Mentally, you can do it, encouragement. So I want to reinforce, maybe something could come from the district to, just like we have a snowstorm and that importance, we should place a little more importance of notifying parents and the community as well that testing is going on.
I would agree. And I think that my office needs to do a better job of that, as well as ensuring that our schools send that information out. Because honestly, even within a school, you have different grade levels testing in different days, maybe different weeks. And so from a district level, we can say, hey, we're going to be testing from April 1st through April 26th. But each individual building and teachers or grade level team, have different testing dates. And I agree, we absolutely need to put something out at the district, and I will make sure that we do. But I think the better communication is from the schools. Because if I tweet something to you on April 1st about the test, but that particular school doesn't start until the 14th, then, granted, I want you putting your kid to sleep early and getting them fed in the morning, every single day.
Right.
But to get them really, really hyped up for those couple days of testing. But yes, you are correct.
Right, and that goes along with, there was a question, one year we didn't test. Again, if parents are getting used to hearing about tests, knowing when they are, even if the dates aren't exact, that awareness, we want parents to be involved. Awareness.
And I agree that we haven't sent anything out as a district and on the website, but we have examples of schools communicating directly with parents. I can give you the examples, and I'll be happy to send you copies because I actually took
Right,
pictures.
and that's great that some do it. But again, if we are wanting a change in our district, we do too many, it's here, not there. It's here. We need more consistency of the message.
We agree, and I think we can also share with principals who may not have done it the examples of rallies on Saturdays that some schools have had. They brought parents in who wrote personalized cards for their students so that the students would find it on their desk the day of the test. I'll be more than happy to send you some of the pictures I took. A big rally the day of the test, making sure that kids have breakfast. So one thing that I'm sure we can do is share those with all principals and then make sure that it's a district initiative.
Right, no need to send them to me because that would make me upset because I didn't get it for my kid. So what I'm saying is great job at those who are doing it.
Let's do it for
But
everyone.
for those parents who are not aware, and we keep talking about we want parent involvement, we cannot send missed messages. We have to be some level of consistency, and like I'm encouraging, maybe the district can be more aware, notification be seen so that our parents wonder, why is my child so tired today?
Right.
Oh, you're testing? Oh, wow, okay, great. If something is missing and the test is skipped 5 years from now, someone may say, oh, well, wait, we normally would test, but if, again.
Absolutely, yes. Agreed, thank you.
So one of the things I would say is that all schools aren't testing, so there's an open window, so there could be more communication coming from those schools. Your child's school may not be testing this week because they get the opportunity to test in that week, so there's information that's coming. At the district level, because that onus is on the school, not that we don't want to promote it, but because that window is so wide, it's a better message coming from the schools. One of the things that we will do, of course, is find out which schools have not submitted that information, then have conversations with them. But to my understanding, schools that were testing this week, students knew, parents knew that because of we call it high stakes testing and all of the work that has been teaching that they've been doing this year focused on the CAP. I would venture to say that we may have maybe a single digit, but to my understanding, schools have been on it with letting for this week. We have, testing goes on, what's the last week that we can test?
The end of the window is the 26th of April.
26th of April, so some are waiting till the end so we can do it the last, that last week of testing, but they're teaching all the way up into it. So if it's not out there now, they are coming. It's very few schools that are actually testing at the beginning of the open cycle. So we still have time.
Let's go.
Oh, I had a question. Will we let the community know what our scores are? In the 80s, they used to print them. And then all of a sudden, it disappeared. You didn't see it.
It's online.
No, but I'm just saying it needs to go out. They used to print it in the paper. You used to see it. You knew it. People, we kind of got away from it. And I think we need to come back because people need to know. We're testing. They need to see the growth. We need to be able to say, we're having some problems here. We need you more involved. We need parents. We need the community. We need it. No, it doesn't always look good when you look at this. No, it's not a good feeling because you want them to do better. And that's our goal. But sometimes we have to be slapped in the face, all of us, to say, and we need to wake our parents up as well to say, we need your help. They got to get the rest. They got to practice. They need a library. They should all have their own library. If you can't, maybe you can't go buy a book, but you can rent a book or go to the library, get a book, make a little shelf, use a box, whatever, to promote reading. And we got to wake everybody up. It's not just all onus on us. It's on everybody in order for it to work. And they used to show the scores. I don't know what happened, why it stopped, but we need to wake people up and shake everybody up. We got some problems. We want it better, and it's a process. We're not trying to say it's your fault. We got to make it better. We got to work at it. All of us. And we can't run away and not show it because it doesn't add up at the end. You see it in the ACT, you see it in the graduation rate, and this is what the legislatures use against us. Some of them, not all of them, but they're looking at these scores and saying, they don't need that money. What are they doing with it? So we got to really push it and make it, hey, y'all, this is important. I'm not saying people aren't, but we got to push it even more, and they need to see what we're seeing.
Yeah, you can find it, but you have to know where to look. So the state has some public data, I guess, repositories where you can access the information. But if you don't know it's there, you're not going to easily find it.
We'll post it on our website. When I was looking to come interview, I literally had to go out to the state and find it. So we will put it under test and accountability and research. It'll be on the website so that you can see the data.
It will be.
And also to that point, Wanda, someone recently posted on our Facebook web page, Facebook site, our test scores. and said, hey, here's where you can find our test scores. A parent went out to our Facebook page and posted the link for people to see. So, like you said, there is discussion in the community about it, but that awareness piece of us pushing it out, that's really good. Yeah.
But remember, this is the 21st century, I know. There's still some people who don't have computers. They can't afford the technology.
Right.
So let's give them every avenue that they can get a hold to get the information. Now, it may be hard to believe, but there's still some folk who buy a newspaper. There's some dinosaurs out there, and they're trying to pull it together. So let's give them every opportunity to find out.
I agree.
Well, for the record, the legislation that was passed, and Dr. Faust and I have already spoken about it, one of the hangups, one of the delays, one of the issues that cause a lot of dissent. But I think we already had the conversation that many of the really poison pills were not included, but there will be, the bill will require each school to create a one-page performance accountability report. Each school district, each school building. And the performance accountability report will include an annual longitudinal report on student achievement on state assessments of English language arts, math, and science. So it's an issue, as Ms. Brownlee-Page noted, that is becoming something that we all accept. Everyone accepts accountability. Now it's more of not a choice, but a mandate. And so, but it will be on us to put it on the website, but still, to your point, not everyone will know where to find it, but it will be clearly displayed, because that, and why does it take a law to mandate it? But nevertheless, it's now mandated. You'll do a lot more.
I look forward I'm already thinking about how to design the report.
Exactly. And that's your point, being proactive. We're going to be proactive, informational, accurate, and all eyes are on us. So if we must improve.
Yeah, there's no way you can look at those numbers and come to a different conclusion.
I'm sorry, we didn't understand.
I'm sorry, there's no way you can look at those numbers and come to a different conclusion.
Exactly. The only way up is up.
Just wanted to say first, thank you for what you've done. I looked at this in detail, and one of the things that I was focused on is looking at level 2 and the scores, and I was seeing the changes. But then after coming to this meeting and hearing that the state is looking at 3, it helped me recognize. And that's one of the things that we have to make sure when we get ready to communicate to parents, to make it very clear so that they can see where they need to move as far as getting their students to be working toward achievement. So again, thank you for clarifying it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And good enough is not good enough.
Right.
No, absolutely not.
And I'm quite sure it's been clarified to our teachers as well, because I think in the past, and I'm not trying to go back there, but in the past, it was kind of accepted that 1 and 2 is, they're doing the best that they can, but the state is asking for something else, so we have to be realistic about what we're trying to do and know what the expectations are from the state. We just can't say, oh, this is okay, they're all right. No, that's not sufficient.
Yeah, I don't know how a principal could sit in any of the meetings with Dr. Faust this year and come out with any conclusion other than it's level 3.
Well, and then
just wanted to make sure.
Quite honestly, last year when we was in this position, we felt the same way.
Yeah.
We expressed the same level of discontent, the same level of what action can be taken. It's just that path, the path of getting us there. We have to be able to use the right tools and equipment and processes to get us there.
And I always come back to budget. And Dr. Faust, these are budgetary items because there has to be support. I can't tell you I'm dissatisfied with this and not also ask, what does it take to change things? And it's going to take money. And it's going to take support, and it's going to take strategies, and it's going to take programs. But we have to know, but we can't always experiment either. Our kids are not
No, we don't have time for that.
not guinea pigs. But we don't need the state to tell us what is not working. We know that. You know it every day. And we're responsible.
Yeah, because, I mean, we're basically failing a second generation.
Thank you. Because they're going to take care of us. And at least I want them to know how to
Because the government's.
write my check.
Thank you very much.
Write my obituary. How about that? Thank you. One of those days.
Okay. We ask that the Kansas City Board of Education accept as an informational item a statistical report on school safety as submitted by Henry Horn, Chief of Kansas City, Kansas Public School Police, and is recommended by myself, Charles Faust.
Thank you, Dr. Faust. Madam President, board members, pause for a second. I appreciate your focus. That's right where we need everybody, and I know that's where your heart and desire is at, but I do appreciate that. That last 5 minutes of that conversation, we do appreciate that here. What I want to do is focus on a little bit of work and kind of understand one of the driving focuses we have as a K-12 police department sits right under Kansas legislation, commonly referred to the Juvenile Justice Reform Act, or Kansas Senate Bill 367. That obviously came through legislation in 2016. We have a standing MOU with local law enforcement, the DA's office, that the board passed through, I believe, in 2017. So that is a primary focus for us. So the data that we want to look at tonight is reflective to calls for service, and those are calls for services specifically between August 2018 and the end of March here this year. Those calls for service is when an officer is involved and when a report is generated. There's a lot of calls for services we handled, but specifically tonight, we're going to look at when the officer is involved and when a report is generated. I'm not going to be able to work that, so I know you have your slides there.
Okay. The other one kept coming.
There we go. I apologize for that. So, I went too far. Oh, my goodness. There we go. So, the total calls for service that generated by the officer initializing a report was 688 of them from that time period. Once again, I want to focus back down here that when we're involved in a code of conduct violation, there's 258 incidents, and my officers are mandated that if they're involved in a code of conduct violation, they are to generate a report. That's twofold. That helps the district on any kind of risk management and helps us also conform to juvenile justice reform. Out of those, we have juvenile arrest. We have 14 of those documented. Those arrests are 6 runaways, 4 warrant arrests, 1 theft, 1 battery, and 2 weapons. It is also noted that those arrests, those juveniles are not booked in because of juvenile justice reform. It generates a notice to appear. A notice to appear is where the juvenile and the parent or guardian is issued within 48 hours. They have to appear in front of JIAC, the Juvenile Intake Assessment Center, and they have to appear with the juvenile and the guardian, and they're assessed on what the next step is in the justice system. More focus on some of the property and everything that we come into contact with from that time period as well. We do a lot of video documentation. The main part of that is involved in risk that we have, like if we're documenting an accident or slip and fall, other incidents involving internal investigations, or a lot of outside requests from agencies. We have a lot of cameras on our buildings, and unfortunately it picks up a lot of activity up and down our streets every day in our neighborhoods. We have recovered 13 weapons, and I think it's important to note, but on those, we have 3 handguns. Of the 3 handguns, we had 1 that was involved in a backpack in a school incident. The other 2 were on our property. 1 was found property at one of our schools, and one was also recovered out of a vehicle. The other types of weapons are pellet guns and toys, and those are mishaps that kids are bringing to school. They're left in their book bag over the weekend. They're recovered from us because they obviously trigger a code of conduct violation that's taken very seriously with the school. But it's also mediated at the administrator's level, whether it's a toy or a pellet gun. With that, I wanted to take a snapshot of our P3 app. That's where the general public, our students, our staff, everybody involved has immediate access to make an anonymous tip. This is data that comes from Crime Stoppers from January 2019 to the end of March. And I wanted to show you kind of comparison throughout the metropolitan area with the other school districts that are involved. So there was a total of 44 scholastic tips that were centered through. We as a district, we had 4 of them. And that's generally what we might get in that period of time. First of all, that tells us that people are using it, and it's very commonly used throughout the rest of the metropolitan area. Alike with that, if you look at Tonganoxie, they had 17. There's a very good indicator. Tonganoxie just came live with that in that time period, so they had a spike in that input. In concluding with this, we are just rolling out, and this is thanks to our finance department and Director Correll behind me here in purchasing. But at the end of school year, we will replace just about every one of our metal detectors and x-ray machines that are stationed at our high schools and our middle schools. And hopefully we'll conclude with that in the future. We're coming up with a sustainment program with the help of everybody here and the cabinet team alike, so that we can look at projecting what we need to do to sustain those down the road in a 10 or a 15-year time period, instead of letting them grow of age and become antiquated, which drives our price of cost of service up. One thing that's not in my slide tonight, our department received an audit from KBI and the Kansas Highway Patrol for KCJS, that's the Criminal Justice Information Service Systems. That's regulated by the FBI and the KBI. We were audited today. We passed with flying colors. We're doing very well with that. So I'm happy to bring that to report as well. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
What's the lifespan on those metal detectors? Because when I talked to you, because I had received a lot of phone calls from people about Sumner when the metal detectors weren't working, and you said you ordered them and they just hadn't got there. So I was just wondering, what's the normal lifespan?
I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna look carefully over the back shoulder, because my partner Wayne Carell here in the back knows more of that, because he purchases them quite frequently and he deals with the vendor more. I'm gonna say probably the metal detector is the walk-through metal detector. The x-ray machine is the item that we do bag checks. Metal detectors can probably run about 10 to 15 years. I think we've got 20 plus years out of some of ours.
Wow.
And they're pretty antiquated, and they've been dropped and they're broken, so that's why we processed them the way we did.
And then my other question, it hasn't happened to us, but in lieu of what happened in Kansas City, Missouri, when there was a fight, I think it's Central High School, and those kids were pushed out. What's the protocol for that?
And I'm not too sure about pushed out.
Well, let me rephrase that.
Yes, ma'am.
They were told to leave, and the one child feared for her life because she feared something was going to happen. And I was just wondering, what is that to be?
Well, I think we approach that a little bit differently, and I'm not saying that just to proverbially toot the horn or any of that stuff. If we have any type of disturbance or activity like that, that is not completely off of our property, we're going to need to stay with that incident until it's concluded, even if it's calling in reinforcement by KCK, because if it's off of our property and still occurring in the roadway where our jurisdiction ends, we're going to make sure that they come to assist so that we have that completely dispersed away from our property to remain that safe and secure environment.
Okay. And then thirdly, do we have enough security officers at every school? At one point, there was 3 or 4 missing. Did we replace all of those to make sure that someone is at every school?
Well, I appreciate that, because I'm going to knock on wood when I say this, because we have 3 conditional offers on the table right now. We should be filling our sergeant position, and I actually had a conversation with Jody Mitchell today, Director Mitchell behind me. We might be looking at being 100% occupied here very soon. But we're still processing applicants, and there's still background that has to be completed. But we are much better as I stand here today than I was at the last meeting we had when we were still trying to get applicants filed. So we're doing pretty good. So if we do that, we'll be at 100%. And I know that Dr. Wynn alike at the last board meeting, we want to have some more detailed discussions about a different layer. And I know we're having those discussions right now with the CFO when we're talking budgeting issues as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you know I have to ask,
Go ahead, ma'am.
how are we handling background checks?
Well, I'm going to defer background checks, ma'am, to the chief of HR right here or one of her assistant directors. I do not do the background checks.
Okay.
I do a background check when it comes to hiring a police officer. There is a standard III.
I'm talking about police officers. I'm not talking about
It's
generic.
the same. We hire the same standard that the school district. But I know that I do a criminal background check. We also have to run fingerprints through KBI. That's also ran through FBI. And I also do a national system called III. And we get anything that's on anybody like that. We also do a background for police officers specifically. We're just like a compact state when it comes to your license and everything.
Okay.
So there's an international system throughout the United States with CPOST, and that's your certifications and standards. So if an officer is dismissed at an agency from, say, Indiana or any other state, that record stays with them. And now the current piece of legislation that we have is that we have signed statements when they come in, because now it's required that if somebody does a background on an officer from our department looking for employment, just like we're doing one from another, we can go internally and look at their internal files. That's Kansas law now.
Right.
So we do that, but it's a standard background, basically what they do with all employees in the district. We are having conversations that we need to do something a little bit different, specifically with the law enforcement piece. Higher levels of responsibility, more rigorous the standards need to be as far as your chief is concerned.
And have we budgeted a new fingerprinting machine?
Actually, that is in my budget, and we had that discussion earlier this week.
I know. So I just want to put it out there. Okay. So you've answered, you don't have to, you can add anything. There's nothing to add.
For all other employees, it's just a typical background check. But he's going through another level.
Well, that's why I was asking. I wasn't talking for man on the street. However, that is still very serious.
Oh, yeah.
And who is second in command?
Deputy Chief Webb?
Is he full-time?
He is not. I'm getting ready to replace him very quickly.
Okay.
We actually bartered to get him here an extra 12 months, ma'am, so that we could try to buy time to get the other positions in that are much more valuable right now. So he was wanting to leave last year, but I needed to maintain the integrity of the department. So that was all vetted through the board.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions, comments?
The only thing that bothers me with that, we don't have anybody else besides this one person who could do that job and qualified, that we have to hang on to somebody part-time. That's kind of scary.
Ma'am, that will come to conclusion very quickly. I echo that with you as well, but we are in search of that. But when most of the concern is having officers in the schools, and that's where I need to concentrate those efforts. I really do.
I respect that. I'm just saying it's kind of scary that we got a part-time person that we're holding on to, and we need him to stay for another 12, and there aren't any other people qualified out of the whole group. I mean, again, I'm just saying it seems strange.
And I
to me.
appreciate your opinion with that. This is not, and if we go too far in this, I'll be more than happy to talk at executive session. This has nothing to do with the individual. It has to do with the integrity of the department, your department, and your school district. That's all it is. And we were just trying to buy time. I would have had him here gone 6 months ago, but we ran short again.
Do we have year-round recruiting?
Excuse me?
Do we have year-round recruiting?
As much as we can. If we only can recruit when we have vacancies.
Right. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
We'll have these conversations more.
Oh, yeah.
Chief Warren, I noticed that your biggest call for service is code of conduct violations. 258 of those. But accidents and medical calls are really low. Juvenile reports are 33. So looking at this, I would say we have very safe schools.
I'm gonna first clarify by a couple things. I'm giving you the data that I think is most significant to the report tonight. We have other data, but as a K-12 police department, I think most of our focus is going to be related to code of conduct violations. That's why Kansas City, Kansas takes care of everything outside of our schools. So that is our focus, and that's where we remain. So if we're doing that, if the numbers flow up on the other charts, I think that's when we all have deeper conversations, if that makes sense.
I appreciate you breaking it down like that so that we can see how it rolls out.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd ask that the Kansas City Board of Education approve pilot purchase of Systems 44, Do the Math, and Math 180 as submitted by Alan King, Interim Assistant Superintendent Kristen Scott, Director of ESOL Migrant Programs, and as recommended by myself, Charles Faust.
Good evening, Dr. Nguyen, Dr.
evening.
Faust, board members.
Good evening.
As we continue to strive to do better, specifically around our ESL students, I am proposing this pilot program of 3 intervention programs in 3 of our intensive language centers at each level. So 1 at elementary, 1 at middle, and 1 at high school. When I created the PowerPoint, we were at 9,300 EL students in the system. When I checked today, we are at 9,452. So we have grown in 1 week by about 100 and some students, and we will continue to grow. Of that, 970 are classified as newcomers, which are students in the country 12 months or less. The newcomer population is very diverse in it of itself. So there are students who are just new to the country that are classified as newcomers, but we also have students who are newcomers with gaps in their education. The district has anywhere between 62 to 68 different languages at any given time, and it's important that we continue to increase the rigor of instruction for ELs, because performance of ELs, English learners, on the state assessment, as well as the state language assessment, impacts how our district is measured on the state's ESEA plan. Of note, I also always want to point out graduation rate around EL students. The graduation rate nationally of ELs is 10% lower, and the dropout rate is 0.7% higher than those who are not ELs. But for students who are newcomers, that jumps. Their graduation rate is 34% lower, and their dropout rate is 6% higher. We need to meet the needs of newcomers from the moment they enter our system, because their success equates the success of our district. With the pilot plan, as I mentioned, 1 ILC, Intensive Language Center, at each level will implement System 44, Do the Math, and Math 180, while the other 3 are going to continue with our current interventions. We offer Imagine Learning Literacy and Imagine Math Facts at our elementary and middle school ILCs. And at our high school ILC, all we have been able to offer is Rosetta Stone. We have nothing for math in our high school ILCs. We will measure each intervention program's effectiveness by looking at a wide range of data. Our test group will be our students who are new to the ILC in the fall. We currently have students in an ILC that may begin next year in the ILC, so I will exclude them from the pilot. I only want to look at students starting in the fall. Some of the data that we will look at to compare the 2 programs is entrance data on the students. What are their screener scores? How did they score on the screener, which is called the KCKPS? What is their fall MAP score? What is their fall FMP score? And I want to look at the placement data of each intervention system. System 44, Do the Math, and Math 180 have a placement system. as well as Imagine Learning and Rosetta Stone. So how do students fall as they're placed in each system? I will also look at the time frame. How long are the students in an ILC based on which intervention program that they are being given before they exit to their school of residence? We'll then compare mid-year data, the same data, how are they doing on the intervention program itself? Because with each intervention program, Imagine Learning as well as System 44 Do the Math, there are continual assessments within the system, kind of gauging where the students are, moving them up, moving them down based on how they're performing. So I want to look at that data as well as winter map, how they're scoring on FMP, and other grade level assessments. And then I'll look at end of the year data. I'm also going to create a survey that I will have general education teachers do. So if a student exits the ILC into a general education classroom, I want to reach out to that teacher. How is this student performing? Do you feel that they exited with the skills that they need to be on grade level with their peers? So I want to hear from just get some anecdotal data to compare the systems. Who exits better prepared based on a teacher's viewpoint as well? I provided the board with just an overview of each program in the board item. Of note, 2 professional development days are within this pilot program, part of the contract. I want to do those 2 professional development days in the spring to do a brand new program with lots of resources and do the professional development in the fall. It's overwhelming for the teachers. So if I can get this in front of the teachers who will be doing the pilot in the spring, get them trained in the spring, they can take materials home if they choose to do so and get used to the materials. I think it'll roll out a lot better in the fall if we do the training now. So that's why I've asked to actually take it before you now instead of in the fall. The funding for this pilot is actually coming from repurposed funds from this current school year. The funds are here now to pay for the pilot for next year. It's coming from Title III funds and migrant funds. Questions?
How many
What?
How many teachers are you expecting to train on this?
3, 1 at each level, as well as myself and the 6 ESL instructional coaches. We will all be in the training as well.
And could you explain a little bit about Rosetta Stone? How is that used? Or could you explain a little more about the Rosetta Stone piece?
Rosetta Stone in our high school ILCs, as well as a couple of our high school ESL classrooms, is used as a rotation. So we're doing small groups. One of the rotations is you're placed on Rosetta Stone. One nice added feature, I think, to Rosetta Stone is it can be done at home. So if they want to, the child has a license, they can do it at home as well.
And so what exactly are they doing? If you could...
They're practicing English. So it's Rosetta Stone for English, and they're going through the program of a Rosetta Stone, and they're learning English. So it's a lot around vocabulary. There are speaking components where they are forced to speak in English. Just like Imagine Learning, there's a speaking component there, as well as System 44, Do the Math, and Math 180.
Now, the funding you said was coming from this year's current budget?
Correct.
So what about next year?
So next year, and I do have it cost out what it would take to continue this if this pilot is where we want to go with our ILCs. So if we chose to just keep it in just 3 ILCs, the cost to maintain moving forward would be approximately $40,000 a year. And then if I wanted to add the other 3, if we feel that this is where we need to go with all of our intensive language centers, then it would be about the same amount as the pilot to establish the other 3.
I see where you were saying you're going to have 3 teachers who will do the training, and then they're going to train others. But one of the concerns, and this is a little different, but the other new math that they're doing, teachers were saying they didn't have enough time, they didn't feel that they were properly trained. Do you see that as being a problem, or?
There is that training day for the program, and then also built in are coaching days where someone from the company comes out and actually spends time with the teacher as well. There are days built in with that, and with myself being trained and the coaches being trained, we can be on site as well, working with our teachers right along with them if they're having any issues.
Because when we had one of our listening tours, they kept coming up saying they didn't feel, at least that's what they told us, I don't
Right.
know,
Right.
that they didn't feel that they were trained properly.
One thing with these programs, I will note, it doesn't replace the teacher, and it doesn't replace teaching. There is the piece to the program where they're on the computer. There's a piece where they're on their own, and then there's the piece where they're with the teacher. So it's small group rotation. The teacher has a manual, and if a teacher is unsure, they can follow a script. But I feel if we get the training done now, and they have time before the year opens, I think we'll have a lot more success with it.
Thank you.
So you're training 3. How many teachers do you have?
I have 6 ILC teachers.
6.
The
6
other-
additional,
Excuse me?
including the 3 or 6 additional?
No, I have 6 total.
6 total.
3 will do the pilot. The other 3 will maintain what we currently have. So I have data to see which is more effective in an ILC classroom.
I'd like to have your comments on a proposal in this last funding bill that started out as restricting, cutting off ELL after 5 years. Then they talked themselves into 7 years, and then we talked them into not addressing it at all. What would be your comments?
Research shows that it takes anywhere from 5 to 7 years for a student to become proficient in the English language. I think there's a lot of misconceptions in the educated community as well as the general population that once someone is able to speak English, we think that they're fluent. It takes 1 to 3 years for a student to get that social language. That's the language of the classroom, interacting with your peers. That's the language of the hallway, cafeteria. Then it takes up to that 7 years for the academic language, which is what's key, so our students perform better. So if we cut off funding, we are cutting it off once they get the social language. They still need support. They need that academic component in order to be truly proficient.
And I'd just like to say, in the schools that I visited with you, I have seen how actively engaging the students are in learning how to speak the language, to work independently, as well as working with the teachers. And so when you match the data that you have from that program with this, I think it would be very beneficial.
I'll add, this just came to me, Dr. Nguyen, they also don't take into account our students with gaps in education.
Right.
They don't take into account our refugee students. And many of our refugee students are coming to us with gaps in education. I just placed a high school student who missed middle school. She went to school through 5th grade. She's a freshman now. She's missed all of middle school. I'm not saying it can't be done, but let's not put that pressure on that child that within 4 years you're going to be proficient, because every child's different.
Well, of course, my counter was that English as our first language, many do not have it mastered. So, it's true. You know, the whole conversation just got really out of no comprehension from the side that wanted to restrict. To what extent can those strategies and those tactics and those tools be used teaching students who English is their first language?
This intervention system can actually be used with other students. It's been used with students with special education, as well as students who are just behind in their learning.
So is there any room for that? I mean, I think we had that conversation, but is there any opportunity?
I only want to speak for my program. I would say if.
Well, you don't want to share your tools with
I will
other?
share my tools. I won't share my funding, but I'll share my tools. I think if we prove that this is effective, then we can branch out and see who else we can help.
Well, how many English language learners do we have?
9452.
And so 22 minus 9452.
Yeah,
Leaves.
we're about 40% of our district are English learners.
All right. Other comments, questions? Go ahead.
So how can the parents, is anything written in the pilot to help support the parents' involvement? Because we know that students come here with parents who also need that assistance. I think we did a great job last year of bringing them in and helping them out on the weekends.
We are still doing that
Oh,
right
good.
now.
Okay.
We've had good attendance. We have 2 more Saturdays. Our last Saturday, we're actually taking the families to the Steamboat Arabia on a field trip. So all of our themes this semester have
Great.
centered around that trip to the Steamboat Arabia. The ILC classroom teachers do a phenomenal job of involving the parents of their students in their education. So I rely on them being that front line to get the parents involved.
I'm part of a Somali group, and one thing that they've mentioned is they do want to be more involved, especially with interpretation and things of that nature.
I welcome that.
Great. That'd be really good. Thank you.
We better go to the Steamboat Arabia before it moves.
I know.
Other question, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. She was a former bear cub, so I know she's going to do her best. We're not worried.
We'll need a motion to approve the pilot.
Need a motion to approve the pilot.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passed.
I'd ask that the Kansas City Board of Education approve contract renewal with the Southeast Kansas Education Service Center, Greenbush, to provide alternative education services for students at Fairfax Learning Center as submitted by Dennis Covington, Chief Financial Officer Octavio Estrella, Assistant Director of Student Services, and as recommended by myself, Charles Faust, School Superintendent.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Faust, Madam President, board members. We're happy to be here before you today to present to you a brief presentation. We'd like to start off with giving you an overview of our current Fairfax Learning Center Alternative High School, and as well as our partnership, our longstanding partnership with Greenbush. After that, we'd like to share with you some data outcomes around graduation, academic progress, and post-secondary readiness, and as well as behavior and discipline data. We also want to discuss our proposal to expand the existing program, the current program, to include an alternative to long-term suspension program, which I've discussed with you previously. We also will review the staffing operation costs per the proposed contract agreement for next school year. Our Fairfax Learning Center Alternative High School serves students who are significantly behind in credits or on their graduation plan for various reasons. I'm continually reminded that these students are resilient young people. They've been through many adverse experiences, both in school and out of school. And so Fairfax Learning Center provides that setting where students can get different tools to advance their education, to catch up on their credits. And so we used a blended, computer-based blended learning environment. The small school setting, the student-to-teacher ratio is key to be able to provide that individual attention to students. And then every student that we graduate at Fairfax Learning Center leaves with a post-secondary plan. I want to introduce our partner.
Good evening. I'm Don Grostadere, and it's my pleasure to represent Greenbush tonight. I'm the Director of Learning Services for Greenbush, and We have had a long-standing partnership with USD 500 over the years. I think we started with the Community Learning Center, 500 Reach, back in 2001, and had other partnerships over the years as well. And so it's our pleasure to be here tonight. I did want to share just quickly Greenbush. If you aren't familiar with Greenbush, it is one of 7 educational service centers in the state of Kansas. It is the largest educational service center. We employ about 475 people that work across the state of Kansas. And our mission is to provide educational opportunities for all. And we're very, very proud of our programming that we offer, from early childhood programming. We're one of the largest early childhood providers in the state of Kansas, all the way from southwest Kansas through southeast and northeast Kansas. We have programs for early childhood students. Our alternative programs that are very prevalent here in USD 500. And we serve both rural students across the state that sometimes don't have the opportunities of larger districts. We serve students like yours in urban settings with very diverse backgrounds. And we serve adult students. We have a diploma completion program, and we have diploma completion programs for adults that have dropped out at different times for different reasons, and they like to come back in and pick up that high school diploma. And we've had people as late as 81 years of age pick up a high school diploma in one of our programs. So it's never too late for somebody to get their high school diploma when they want it. We also work with the Department of Corrections in the state, provide educational programming through correctional facilities across the state. So we have a very diverse background across our organization, and we bring that experience here, and we appreciate the opportunity to work with Octavio and your staff at FLC.
With respect to the Fairfax Learning Center Alternative High School, we came together as partners based on our relationship in the beginning of the 2016 school year to look over our outcomes. We were not happy at that time with our outcomes, especially with our graduation rate. And we looked at what can we do differently? What different tools can we employ? And so since that time, there's been an emphasis at Fairfax Learning Center to really build a responsive culture and climate that meets students where they're at, their needs, that builds around relationships and trust that are key. And then the ongoing weekly monitoring of academic progress, attendance, behavior, discipline, that is something that all staff, all faculty at Fairfax Center own. It's not just one that, it just doesn't lie with the principal. Everybody is involved in this progress monitoring. And then one thing that was key there during that time that continues is the implementation of restorative justice as our response to discipline and behavior in the school. And of course, this ongoing work that we're engaged with constantly looking at our work at Fairfax Center is in line with the board expectations around student achievement, setting high expectations, and creating safe and respectful learning environments. And then I'll just hand it over to Donna to talk a little bit about some of these outcomes.
That's a proud moment there in the picture. That's last year's graduation at FLC, and I think a number of you were there. Dr. Yeager, you were our commencement speaker last year, did a very nice job. We appreciated that. If you take a look at the outcomes that we've had in graduation, Octavio mentioned the year 2016, and that year we had 14 graduates at FLC, and that was a previous high. I mean, that was high for that particular time. The next year we moved to 27 graduates, and last year we had 38 graduates. And when you look at the number of those that are eligible in terms of their cohort, that's a 92% graduation rate. So that in an alternative setting, that is a very good graduation rate. And I think the restorative justice piece can't be overstated, the impact that that's had on students, because we've been able to keep students in school and keep them engaged. And I'll show in some of the other data that's had an impact there as well. This year, we're anticipating 35 graduates. That's probably going to be about 88% of the seniors this year. But we also had 6 early graduates this year. They're going to graduate ahead of their class. And that's the great thing about an alternative program like that. As soon as they meet those standards, they can graduate and move on. And that's what we've been able to do. If we move on, we'll talk a little bit. Octavio mentioned the fact that they have a post-graduation plan. It's all part of our Diploma Plus capstone project. Every student at FLC completes a capstone project before they graduate. It includes an autobiography. We feel that it's important for students to be able to articulate where they started in their journey, the challenges that they've had, and then be able to articulate where they want to go with their life. We come up with a 12-month plan to meet their needs. We do an interest inventory, career cruising interest inventory to determine what their interests are. Each student's going to produce a resume before they graduate. We do a senior interview. We have individuals, we'll bring people in. We try to bring in community members and partners to do interviews with the students. And we'll do a senior interview before they leave us at FLC. And then it really is individualized in terms of their choices. It's a college career preparation. Every student, of course, is taking the ACT, but we also work with every student and family to complete the FAFSA, because that's an extremely important piece to college is their ability to be able to pay for it. So we make sure that when they leave that they have that completed. Military acceptance, job shadow, and tech opportunities as well, and I'll talk about some of those tech opportunities here a little later. If we take a look at some of our data in terms of courses completed, you can see that last year at this time, and I'm trying to compare apples to apples here, so we had 595 courses completed by the students, and that translated to 297.5 credits. This year, we're pretty close to that same pace. We're a little bit off of it, but 581 courses completed and about 290.5 credits completed towards graduation. One of the things that I'd like to point out too, we talk about this from a progress made perspective. The average student that comes into FLC is at a point in their life where they only have 66% of the credits that they should have at that time. This is a credit recovery program, so many of them are significantly behind when they come to FLC. So that gives you an idea of what the average student looks like. And then Octavio, you want to mention this?
Yeah, so David Rand produced a historical analysis probably a couple years ago now that looked at ninth graders and at the end of the ninth grade year, their credits that they had earned. And at that time, if a student had not completed all their ninth grade credits, they were 37% less likely to graduate on time. So this is a little bit overstated. I talked about dropouts here, but we're really talking about graduating on time.
Okay, I mentioned the concurrent enrollment piece at Kansas City Kansas Community College, the Tech Ed program. This year we've had 4 students the first semester, which is about 10% of our seniors that are working on tech certifications at KCK Community College, and 3 students this last semester, or that was in 2017-18. A lot of that's dictated by the slots that they have available in the programs that the students want to get into. We'd like to think that those numbers would be higher, but sometimes that's dictated by what they have available for us. So this year, the numbers are relatively the same. 4 students, 10% of the seniors, and this semester it's dropped down to 2 students this particular semester. For next year, we have 9 students that have expressed an interest, and we've prepared applications for them for KCK. So hopefully we'll be able to accommodate all 9 of those, but there's no guarantee that would be the case. This behavior data, I think, is important data to take a look at, too. And if we take a look at the suspensions, we had 15 suspensions last year at this point in time. We're down to 10 this year. Again, restorative justice, I think, is part of this. The number of students last year was 4 students suspended. This year, it's actually 10. So those 4 students last year were suspended more than one time. This year, it's pretty much just been a single suspension across 10 students. Physical altercations, we didn't have any last year. We have had 2 this year. We've had 2 long-term suspensions last year, where we have 0 this year. And one of the things I'd like to point out in terms of this, when you think of suspensions, and this is part of the pilot that Octavio's talking about, you're talking about a lot of lost instructional time. And those long-term suspensions last year, we had more of those last year. We had 102 instructional days missed by those students that were suspended last year. This year, it's down to 32. So I think that speaks towards that restorative justice piece and gives us kind of hope for this pilot program that we're talking about for long-term suspensions. The other thing is, of the office referrals at FLC, only 10% have, actually it's a little less than 10%, have actually come in suspensions. And the office referrals to this point this year are 140 office referrals. So that gives you an idea that very few of those have it's about 7% actually, the exact data of those suspensions based on the office referrals. So we're doing everything we can to keep those students in school. I'll turn it over to Octavio now to talk about the restorative education program.
So what I'd like to shift to now is to talk a little bit about our what's contained within our proposal, our MOU for next school year, which contains an expansion to include an alternative to suspension program, which I previously discussed with you, I think on January 26th at your Saturday board meeting. And I just want to review that again. So the purpose of establishing an alternative, what we're calling a restorative education program, is to really provide students who are on long-term suspension that individualized academic and social intervention and support. We're looking to empower students to develop those skills, those social-emotional skills that are necessary to go back to their school and be successful, so that we reduce the likelihood that they will be suspended again. Program overview. The program will be designed to serve 25 students at a time. It will be a program in lieu of long-term suspension, so students will be placed for 45 school days. Let me, so just so you know, long-term suspension in our code of conduct is a student can be suspended up to 90 school days. An expulsion is up to 186 school days. So this will serve sort of as a diversion to those long-term suspensions, and students will be in the program for 45 school days and then reintegrate back into their school. Students will be identified through the disciplinary hearing process. They'll be offered opportunities for credit recovery, and we'll be building on our success at the high school program around restorative justice and social-emotional curriculum. And then we are proposing that every student, we are asking for an allocation of a behavioral health social worker to be there to serve all students in the building, but every student in the REP program will have access to a licensed social worker. So what's next, board, is a cost summary based on the proposed MOU agreement. What you have on your left side is the proposed cost for our existing high school program, and for the next school year, the USD contribution, or USD 500's contribution or responsibility, will be at $651,425, up from this current school year at $577,500. And these are the current staff in the high school program. And then on the right side, you have the break cost summary for the pilot program. for the expansion alternative suspension program. And that is at a cost to the district at $288,792. And that will support one dean of student position, 3 teacher positions, and 1 paraprofessional position. The next line there, you have the maximum combined with the high school program and the expansion program at $940,217. As I mentioned earlier, we're also asking for an allocation of a behavioral health social worker that will be assigned, that will be employed by KCKPS and assigned to the Fairfax Learning Center High School, and that will serve both programs. And then we're also asking for transportation for the 25 students assigned to the long-term suspension program. And again, this slide here, again, those 3 teaching positions and that 1 paraprofessional will be key to providing the individualized academic, social, emotional interventions. The Dean of Students will be the key person, the coordinator at the building level that is implementing restorative justice across the building, and also PBIS, our positive behavior intervention supports. And then, of course, the behavioral health social worker, which will provide behavioral health support, mental health support to all students in the program. And thank you again. Any questions?
So to clarify, the new expansion would just be for high school, not middle school?
It would be high school.
And at a given time, do you know how many students are generally on that level already? Like this school year, how many are out or have been?
So currently, at this particular point in the year, we have approximately 18 students, high school students, that are on long-term suspension or expulsion. We did look at some trend data over the last two school years and determined that the 25 slots, we believe, will be enough to continually serve students who are on long-term suspension based on just the trends in terms of when students are suspended.
Okay.
Other questions, comments?
I got a quick question.
Yes.
You know, what percentage, if you know, you might not know, but what percentage of your students are foster children?
Percentage-wise, I wouldn't be able to give you a percentage, but I do know that we access a database that the state puts together, and the last time we checked, we had about, these are across all levels,
Sure.
not just high school, but I think we had somewhere in the vicinity of 260 foster care children.
Right, okay. Thank you. Do you track them after graduation, do you?
The foster care children?
Yeah. Or no, the regular students.
In the Fairfax Learning Center?
Right.
Well, we currently don't have them. I don't think today we've had a mechanism where we track students in
Right,
terms
okay.
of where they go next. Right. That's certainly something that we have talked about developing, being able to know, because of the preparation that they have with the capstone project, we'd like to know where they go. And,
Sure.
And we have those plans that actually talk specifically about when students will enroll at the programs and the certificate programs, but whether they're actually enrolled in those programs, we haven't been able to track that.
Thank you.
Just to add on to that, those students would still show up in your graduation data, just like your other high schools, so the ability to track them through the same means that you track those students could be done.
Thanks.
You know, we've had this conversation and appreciate January to now.
Yeah.
Remind me, or help me remember, there was some discussion about there wouldn't be 9 teachers. What was that discussion? On this chart, are you talking, existing has principal, assistant, 6 full-time teachers, right?
The existing high school program, yes.
Right. And the addition would add 3 additional.
3 additional to serve the alternative suspension program students.
Okay. I thought we had a conversation about.
So you may recall that I think at that time we had an additional program specialist position.
Okay.
And so we decided that that it's better to have that teaching position than that program specialist to be able to provide that direct instruction.
I thought we had some conversation. I couldn't remember, so thanks for helping me. Other questions? So go over just briefly the contract.
Okay.
The details, the specifics of the contract.
So, and then Don, you can sort of chime in, but so you're talking about the amount?
And responsibilities and.
Yes.
The Greenbush identified staff are employees of Greenbush, okay, but they still follow all of your policies and everything, and but they report to the principal position is a Greenbush employee, so that person is responsible for the supervision and evaluation of those teachers. Your staff is still supervised by your staff, so that's part of it. From a budgetary standpoint, I think it is key to keep in mind that the allocation that it lists for USD 500 is based on actual allocations. It's an amount that you will not exceed, okay? We present your business department with invoices based upon actual expenditures. So you're never going to exceed that amount, but you may come in under it. This past year, we were actually over, but you were still only responsible for the $577,500, I think. But so Greenbush had to take a loss on it this past year. And it's difficult, to project what all of our expenditures are going to be at this point in time for next year, particularly from a personnel standpoint. And so that was part of it, and we had a new position last year in that program, and that bumped things up as well. But those are the key pieces. So any other specifics about responsibilities that you'd like to question?
Well, it just says that in item 2.1, the contract pages are not numbered, but we agree to provide the full-time counselor, the social worker, custodial, nutritional, police officer support. So those would be in addition to this cost. However, this $940,217 is in this contract. So
correct.
Those would be additional costs on our.
Additional costs on your part.
Okay.
That is correct. And the facility is your facility as well.
Other questions, and what's your pleasure?
So in the June month, since the contract starts July 1st, since the contract starts in July, what activities go in that? Is that training or staff or?
Well, that's just the fiscal year beginning. Staff wouldn't actually report until, the building staff wouldn't report until August.
Okay.
But that's, all of our contracts are based on a fiscal year, July 1 to June 30. So that's just a fiscal year designation. But yes, training, different things take place, and we've already been working with Octavio and your staff to coordinate some more restorative justice trainings as well for the building in anticipation of the new program. The biggest challenges, of course, for us, and that's why, I think it's critical that we get this taken care of now, is recruiting and hiring these new positions. We're talking 3 positions that we're going to have to fill from a teaching standpoint, a paraprofessional and a dean of students. So, we've already been testing the waters for that, but, until that's approved, we couldn't take any actions.
With all due respect, I'd like to make a motion that we table this until we have a budget meeting, because there's so many things that we need to cover, and we want to be fiscally responsible, and I understand the constraints that you're under, but to make this kind of decision,
this late at night, and I think we all need to be clear, and we need to be looking at our full budget to make sure that we do justice for everything. So I would like for us to table that at this time.
Okay.
In order to get this program up and running,
Wait a
we're
minute, I
gonna
think we need
to.
a second before we discussion, if that's correct, proper procedure. No? I,
Yeah, you can't just leave it out. Either they second.
I'll second it for, then, it's been moved and seconded. Now discussion. Go.
Okay. You won't have a decision on the budget until late May, early June, and if we can't get this off the ground before then, we probably won't be able to get it started for the next school year.
Well, the way we did it last year, we did talk about the budget and kind of go through.
I mean, we
so-
can talk about the budget in sections, but for you to get an approved budget where you've seen all additional costs that we would be seeking, that's not until late May, early June.
And last year, I think we ran into that same problem of
Yes.
approving it late, so we couldn't get it implemented.
That's correct.
And we asked.
This year, we won't be late May. We will start as soon as in a couple weeks. So my motion, my reason for seconding is that we will do this. But at this time, my reason and why I would support tabling is that, as we fully discussed, but we will not wait until late May. The funding has been approved. The preliminary, this is part of preliminary. I would maybe perhaps ask the maker of the motion to, table to next meeting or something like that. But we will start approving, having preliminary budgetary discussions ASAP.
Yes.
We're not
I
waiting
agree.
till late
We'll
in
be
May.
having discussions,
Yeah.
but are you saying you all are gonna approve things prior to the total approval of the budget?
Correct. That
Okay.
we will
Then I
make
agree.
tentative preliminary approvals and add it up.
Yes.
Yeah, we will not wait until late May. We can't do that. We can't, that's not planning. But no, we kind of accepted this in January, tentatively. You clarified some of the changes, the tweaks, but I don't think anyone denies the importance and significance, and we're going in this direction. So that's my understanding of tabling, but not an up or down, but a tentative
So,
yes until.
For clarification, are we saying that they can go ahead and
We haven't
start
voted yet.
recruiting?
There's a table. We haven't voted yet. It's just been seconded.
So,
The
but
vote
you're,
hasn't been
but he's
called.
asking for clarification of what the
He
meaning
said
of
if you
that.
table it, can they go on before we do it and start hiring?
No.
If it's tabled, that's what
No.
that's my assumption. That's
But
correct.
we can table it to the next board meeting and have further discussion to a date certain, to decide then April 23rd, up or down. But
Okay.
we're there,
Okay.
in my opinion. I'm
Just didn't
there.
want us to get caught like we did last year of approving it too late to get the program off the ground.
No.
But that wasn't our fault. For clarity, I know you weren't here, but I'm just saying that was
Not
not
trying to
our
say it was
fault.
anyone's fault, but in order to get the program up and running, we've got to get a decision of yes or no.
Yeah.
That's all.
So I would ask the maker of the motion to amend her motion to table to a date certain, April 23rd meeting.
So
Yes.
And as maker of the second, I approve. Now discussion. So the intent of the motion is to consider it, look at it, do your addition, and we then will make a decision next board meeting on this one. Because there's another Greenbush virtual coming up. Questions for that? You having question of?
So with regard to the Fairfax contract.
Correct.
What additional information do you need from us that you need?
To help us approve it. Okay. At this point, no additional information, but that this is it with revisions. This is it, correct? Okay. Probably the only other additional cost is what you clarified, is that we would provide the custodian, the custodian, the counselor's here.
Yeah.
Just custodian, nutritional, and police. That's the only additional cost.
And all those costs are currently in the budget already. That's not
Okay.
additional. Those costs are currently funded now.
Good.
That helps.
So I don't understand.
Okay. For clarity, is that the motion was to table the decision until the next board meeting, April 23rd. That's the date of our next board meeting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Yes. And at that point, we revisit it and make a decision up or down.
I'm confused. What are we revisiting? Because they have to make.
They have to vote?
How
We'll make a
long is it-
decision. That's just a
That's what I'm
phrase
waiting on.
Are you
revisiting.
calling for a vote?
Is it too
We will
short
have to vote on that motion
for them to go on and with the hiring, or they're holding
can't
up?
hire.
They can't hire until after we approve it.
Right.
Correct. So it's a 2-week delay, if you want to call it that.
What's the reason for the delay, though? I mean, we don't need any more information from them? We just need time to consider? Is that
Madam
what you're
President, I think we just need to vote.
saying?
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, we just need to vote.
Well, maker of the motion, care to respond?
Yeah, I just wanted us to wait, because I think we were supposed to talk about a budget when we had the April 6th meeting. That was canceled. But I still think we need to look at financially where we are. We're making decisions, and then maybe it's something else we wanted to do. And if we're going to spend almost $1 million on this, that money could go toward, I'm not saying this isn't needed. Maybe we wouldn't do the whole thing or whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying, let's look at the whole financial picture.
I just think we need to call for a vote.
Yeah.
Clarification. The part of the program is already funded in the budget. The increase would be the adding of the restoration program was like, I don't remember the exact numbers. And
Yeah,
then
I
an
see the
increase
numbers.
in
We
the
got it.
current project cost. So the total investment for its new money is like 300 and some thousand. It's not a million.
288,792.
Plus the increase from the 577 to the 651. For our current program, the cost last year to the district was 577,500.
Correct.
Got it.
The current program cost next year is 651,425.
Got
So
it.
that's the first increase.
Okay, and that
then
increase
the
came as a... wait a minute,
288.
Excuse me. The increase from 577,500 to 651,425 came as a result of what?
That's basically a result of two things. One, it's a result of an under projection last year. So Greenbush assumed a loss on the program of about $49,000. This year, it's starting at that point and then moving, looking at, our increased costs for next year, health insurance, salary increases, all the same things that you have to look at in a year's period of time.
Okay, help me understand this. Last year's cost, 2018-19, or current year actually, was 577,500.
That was your allocation maximum, and
Correct.
you will not exceed that. You will not
Understood.
exceed that.
Understood. Well, we
Our
did,
costs are over that this year.
right, so that because of essentially you had to eat 49,000, that then is added to the next.
Well, it's not added, it's those costs, that's what those actual costs are to run that program this year.
Okay.
And we can't run it at a deficit next year.
So you're recovering that 49,000.
Not recovering it, no. No, I mean, we're not
Excuse me,
recovering
I'm
it.
asking the gentleman.
No.
Okay, then so help me understand what you just said.
Well, it's
Result
not a
of
recovery. That's
under-projection?
our, see, when we budgeted the program last year, those
Right.
were projections. We have actual costs that exceed the 577.
Correct.
So we have to start for our projection for next year at what our actual costs are this year. So that's not a recovery of that money because those costs are going to be at least that much next year, and they're going to be more because there's going to be increases in health insurance costs, there's going to be increases in salaries, and so on.
Okay, so the difference between 651 and 577 are projections?
Projected increases from your allocation.
From the allocation.
Right.
Now, what is the 681, 425?
681. Those would be the actual projected costs. Yeah, but we also have other, we also take in some categorical aid, so that's how we make up that difference.
Okay.
And we can reduce your allocation as a result of that.
And you said there's a mechanism that will not allow our costs to exceed?
Right, and that's written into the contract.
That's a 940,217.
Yeah, that's for the total of the.
Both sides, yes.
Both sides of the program, yes.
High school program.
And your costs would not exceed that.
Yes.
Regardless of what actual costs end up being.
Okay, now, so here's a question. Now, because there were under projections last year, can one assume that if there are under projections this year, that next contract would reflect those costs?
That's a possibility when you're talking about a new program, and we're talking about hiring 3 new teachers, an assistant, a dean of students.
Right.
So that's a possibility because there are lots of things that go into projections, like the cost of health care for those employees will be dependent upon the choice they make in terms of what our plans have to offer. And that dictates then how much we have to allocate for that. So we allocate a base amount, but it could be higher than that. The same thing is in salary. We can't necessarily recruit only teachers that are at the base salary. People come in at different levels, master's degrees, years of experience, those types of things. So, we can project and try to stay within those projections, but particularly when you're up against it in terms of hiring, as I know your staff understands in terms of time, sometimes you're taking people that maybe cost you more money than normally you would take.
Well, please be mindful that, first, Greenbush, you're established, and we respect that.
Right.
And I think, like you said, we've had a relationship with you how long?
2001 is my
Your own
understanding, maybe even
experience.
before that.
Yeah,
but
and
that's
so we don't intend to cut it off.
Right.
So please understand that.
Oh, I do. I understand.
And secondly, how do you base your teacher salaries? For example, the deaf school uses Olathe as the basis of their contracts. What do you use yours?
Well, we have our own salary schedules. Greenbush is considered a school district by designation. We're a service center, but we're USD 609. So we have salary schedules that are set up just like yours.
Okay.
So it's, they're different because of the diversity of our programs. We're working in so many areas, so it's
Exactly.
hard to get a projection from a neighbor and so on. So I can't tell you exactly what our CFO puts into those. I don't deal with
So my
that.
real question is, these teachers' salaries are based on what? 500 salary schedule or your own?
Sure.
Yes, we use the average of our staff to cost out those positions. So that dean, when we calculated the 288, we used if we were hiring a dean for our district.
Mm-hmm.
But if he don't hire a dean at that rate, that's how his costs will fluctuate. And so he may spend more than the 288 to get those positions, because we calculated based on the average of those costs to us.
So the average of the two districts. Okay. Well, that's the full discussion we're having.
Yeah, sure.
So, with respect to the other board members, that it's the fiduciary responsibility for us to know you're spending $1 million, how we're spending it. So, other questions may have? Call for the question. Further discussion? Okay, so the motion on the floor is to table the approval of this contract until a date certain. Next board meeting would be April 23rd. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
It would be nay. Motion failed.
I make a motion that we approve the contract.
A second.
Been moved in second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Nay. Motion passed. Look forward to doing more business. The next item.
This particular agreement is a little bit different because this agreement is,
I'm frozen.
oh,
But go, keep talking. It'll come back.
okay,
Go.
we'll come back
You
to the
wanna
introduction.
do your-
Okay.
Just a minute. Would ask that the Kansas City Board of Education approve memorandum of understanding renewal with Southeastern Kansas Education Service Center, Greenbush, to provide virtual school services for students as submitted by Dennis Covington, Chief Financial Officer, Octavio Estrella, Assistant Director of Student Services, and as a recommendation, or as recommended by me, Charles Faust, student. I'm not. Superintendent. I'm not a student. It's been a long day.
We'll take a break after this one. Go.
I think you need a break.
Thank you, Dr. Faust. This agreement is a little bit different because this agreement is based upon Greenbush's ability to generate virtual state aid for your district, okay? So you don't have any out-of-pocket fees or anything up front on this. It is entirely based upon our ability to recruit and work with student services for underage. I shouldn't say recruit because we recruit the adults, but we really don't recruit the underage 19 students. They are referred to us through student services. But the numbers that are in there, we try to calculate our budget based on what we think we can bring in terms of virtual state aid. And each student that is counted as a full-time virtual student, an underage 19 student, generates $5,000 in state aid. So the contract is based upon, for the first, I'm trying to think, I think it's for the first 75.
The first 85.
First 85 students, we take 4,700 of that, and then after that, we split that aid 50-50, 2,500. So by doing it that way, we can calculate what our budget costs are going to be, and we can stay within that budget. And we've been able to hit that budget target number the last couple of years without problem. In fact, we've been able to share back a significant amount of that underage 19 aid with you. The second piece of that is the adult students. And the adult students we recruit and enroll. They don't have to go, through our policies with you, they don't have to go through student services to be admitted. But we we enroll them if they don't have a high school diploma, and we work with them to generate credits. And state virtual funding for adults over the age of 19, state virtual funding for them is based upon their completion of credits. And each credit they complete, they get 709, or you would get $709 per credit completed by our students. And we report that information to your district so that you can report it and acquire that money. The same thing is true with the virtual state aid. We report those numbers to you. You submit those to the state. Those are audited as well. They're part of your audit. And then you get paid for those numbers of kids that we're able to get counts on during the count windows for virtual. So it's all based on that formula. We have a site, 500 Reach. We operate out of, currently we're operating out of it's a commercial property at 7704 Parallel Parkway.
Next to, yeah.
And it is, we have basically 4 certified staff members that work there and an administrative assistant. And they work directly with those students and get them enrolled, get them oriented to the program. We provide each student with a laptop as part of the program. You will notice there is a provision in that MOU that allows us to charge $15 a head a semester per student for the laptop, just as a technical support fee. And we feel like, they're a little more responsible for the laptops if they have a little skin in the game. And we haven't run into any problems with anybody being able to pay that. And if we did, we'd work with them to do that. But that hasn't been an issue thus far. So our numbers, just to give you some numbers on this program, last year we had, this year, I'll give you the numbers first. We had a little over 400 total students enrolled, and since July 1. And currently, we have 329 active students in the program. And when I say active, they're actually working. Our data, we can track that data through Edgenuity and see how much time they're online, what they're working on, the percent of their courses that are completed, and so on. So we know that we have 329 active students as of right now. Gave you a snapshot of what the students look like that come into FLC. We have a similar type of population that goes to the virtual. About 39% of them came in with less than 12 credits. About 31% came in with about 13 to 18 credits, and 30% come in at over 18 credits. So most of the students that are coming in are, credit deficient students. When you think of adults that need a high school diploma, they've dropped out at some point in time. They do need to recover those credits. Our data this year, last year and this year, we had the adults. I can break it down by adult and underage. Last year we had 278. This is for the entire year, by the way. 278 adult credits earned. Our underage 19 credits earned were 260. We had 40 adult graduates. We also had 30 underage 19 graduates. And those are 30 graduates that are going to, all of those graduates are going to count in a positive way for your data. But the underage 19 are never going to count as a dropout. So that's a good thing for that. July to March of this year, right now we're at about 233 credits earned by adults. We've got about 175 credits earned by the underage 19 population. We're projecting, this isn't a projection, these are actual graduates at this point. We've got 27 adult graduates thus far in that program. And we've got 19 underage 19 graduates thus far. So those are students that have already earned their high school diploma, and we'll have more. And we'll have a graduation ceremony. We've got 500 Reach. We had some of you attended that last year. In fact, this year we're very appreciative of the district. I think we have both of our graduations scheduled at Schlegel. And so we'll have a nice venue, auditorium, and a stage this year, which we haven't had the past year. We had The community college was kind enough to host it for us at, in their large room at the tech center, but quite honestly, we've outgrown that.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of people there,
Praise the Lord.
and we needed a bigger space.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it'll be nice to be at Schlegel this year for that. And I think we've got that on your calendar, and some of you maybe have already signed up to attend that, so we look forward to having you there. So any questions about that particular program?
So when we contract with Greenbush to do our virtual learning, you do all of our virtual students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. We are, and this is the other thing, a school district or a program like us has to be accredited through KSDE to operate a virtual program and to qualify for state funding. We have that accreditation. We go through that process. It's an annual process that we work with KSDE on, and we have meetings, and I submit to Dr. Faust or superintendent each year a assurance page, and I also give documentation on how we meet those assurances, and then he has to sign off on that. That's basically all you have to do towards that accreditation. We take care of all the other details with that, but that's what you have to have an approved program.
We understand that. How does the funding flow?
The funding flows to you. The state aid flows to you. All state aid from the virtual comes to you, and then we bill you according to
Based on enrollment?
Based on those enrollments,
Okay.
based on credit completions for the adults.
And what was the total amount received last year?
The total amount of
virtual state aid.
I'm sorry, I didn't write that down, but we.
You can provide it to us
yes,
later.
I can
Along
give
with the statistics that you gave were very informative.
Yes.
Okay.
Could you clarify, do they still have to show up in person to enroll, or is there availability online to enroll?
They need to come in and enroll in person.
So that part hasn't changed?
That has not changed, and the reason for that is it's very important that we put, in fact, that's a requirement under the regulations with the state, is that every student has to go through an orientation. And that face-to-face contact is very important to establish the relationship. And the thing is, this is a blended virtual program. We hope that the students, that first meeting is not the last meeting. We're hopeful that they come in and take advantage of the teachers and the opportunity to get extra help at that center. Yeah. The other thing is, if they're not performing, we ask them to come in. And we have an intervention process that we go through with those students to ensure that they improve. So that face-to-face contact is very important. And with the underage 19 students, that starts through student services. That's a process that they go through student services, and then we work with student services to approve their enrollment. Then we go through the enrollment process with them and the orientation, and issue them a laptop if that's what they want. They don't have to take the laptop.
Okay, you need a motion on this, don't you? Need a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved in second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure working with you.
Thank you. And so for future board members, probably I will help answer some of the questions. Legislative Post Audit did a audit on virtual learning. And so there's some concerns about completion rate, and it's just something to read. How about a 5-minute break?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we'll return in 5 minutes, please.
That girl sound like an adult.
Excuse me, Ms. Bell. Shall we reconvene? Number 7, board discussion. Accept the first read proposed changes to the Parent-Student Handbook. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Faust. I'm before you this evening with our district parent handbook. That what is in front of you, so that you could see a draft of how it would be printed as we took the opportunity to color code the sections. So that's the first change. And then what I will do is just take you through the numbers that you can earmark the changes, although they do have a strike through. And most of the changes that I'm taking you through are just updated things that we need to update in the parent handbook. So the first change in the table of contents is just indicating how we now have sectioned the parent handbook. Yellow section, blue section, green section, so that it becomes a little bit more parent-friendly with some of the language. When you turn to page 1, again, we're just updating the title of the departments on page 1. That's all the changes are.
Could you clarify, it has transportation twice and 2 different phone numbers?
Oh, yeah, it's the 3,200. We just
Okay.
needed to mark the strike through all the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, The next page is page 4. It's the parent letter signed by our board president. So any changes that you would like to make to that letter, we didn't put any strike throughs until you had a chance to look at it.
I saw that.
I spelled it correctly. I checked twice. If you turn to page 11 now, which is the yellow section, we just updated the information about where students will enroll, our centralized enrollment information. So all of that will be current for the 1920 school year. If you turn to page 12, it's just the updated dates of information for permits that begin, the window opens on the date of kindergarten roundup, and then it will close August 16th instead of the 20th because the school year starts earlier. And Dr. Faust provided guidance about really trying to stabilize some of the mobility and really encouraging parents to take advantage of the centralized enrollment that will happen at the end of July, and making sure that we have all students ready to start school on the 7th. When you turn to page 11, Josh, our Director of Nutritional Services, updates the information we need every year for the meals, and that's on page 13, just the following page. Again, it's just information that's not necessarily changing the policy, that just needs to be updated how we're doing day-to-day business. If you turn to page 20, we're just updating the information from our nurses. And we don't have the new immunization. It usually is updated at the end of April, and we'll include the new updated information that will be inserted in our handbook. And if you just turn to page 22, you'll see that we insert it right there. It's downloaded from KDHE, and they'll put the new requirements with the current school year. And we should be receiving in the next week or so by the time we bring back to you the second read. If you turn to page 24, we updated the information for graduation that was recently revised in your policy and updated it in the parent handbook for our parents. If you turn to page 32, those are changes that reflect the Department of Student Services that's on the Code of Conduct. On the new district webpage of the Code of Conduct. And all we did was move it up a section. And so you'll notice when I refer to it again here in just a couple of minutes, it's just that we moved it up so that at the end of the book is just some of the other language around policies. If you turn to page 49, you'll notice all of those strike-throughs, but that's just the information from student services that we moved to the front, which I already pointed out. And then the gold color section on page 54, right now our recommendation is to strike through Parker pending what the decision of the board is, but we just wanted to put the strike through in there now so that once the handbook is approved, we won't forget it as we look through some of our edits. And all of this information, in terms of updates, is submitted to the department heads so that we can know that each information reflects the information that should be shared with our parents. So the handbook is provided for the household of children they have in the district. So this is just the first read, no decision today. This gives you an opportunity to look at what has been shared from other department heads and information that we want to make sure that we're getting out to our parents. And if there's anything that needs to be included, then this would be a great time to take some time to look at it and provide it to me before the next board meeting, and I'll be glad to add it in here.
Let me ask you right off, is there anything in here that informs them about the bullying hotline?
So let me go back and look at the page. There is a safety piece in there that Chief includes, and I want to make sure that we have included in the past.
While you're looking, Dr. Faust, that was one of the criticisms of not including a more funding for a second bullying prevention policy. And so one of the remarks was that the current, well, one of the reasons that it wasn't included is that there's a statement that there is currently a bullying hotline, anti-bullying, I'm sorry, and that it is not being promoted. It is not known. Is it in here?
So on page 35, what we included, and we certainly can add, and I'll make note of that, is that we've included the safety information hotline, but we haven't included the 1-800 number for the bullying, which we can. And then if you turn to page 36, Chief spoke of this earlier. We included the P3 app that they can download to report, but we can certainly add that number.
Right, maybe anti-bullying. I apologize, it's not bullying.
Sure.
Anti-bullying.
Is there anything about the virtual school in our book or a listing for it?
It is included in our alternative programs in our student services section, which is in the blue. So let me go back to where I've added it. I actually don't see it in here, but I can add it, yeah.
And also, if you could add it in the contact information on maybe page 55.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And you've probably mentioned this already. Is there any reference to the behavioral mental health piece or the trauma?
No, but we can
piece?
add that.
Yeah, I think that's probably important. And where on the website is this? It's easy to find?
So it's in a couple of places. It's found under parents, and then it's also included in our Department for Student Services.
Okay.
And I haven't had a chance to see the new website, but I know it'll be easy to find those tabs, so parents may not know to go under the Department of Student Services so they know where they can find the parent handbook and the code of conduct. But I've been working with Melissa so it's easy access for things like these type of documents that they want to quickly find.
Okay. Other comments? Looks good. Well, look and make sure for next meeting, right?
All right, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you.
Board.
Second read for District Purchasing Manual. Hello.
Good evening, Dr. Faust, Dr. Nguyen, members of the board. There were two action items that I took away last time. One was Superintendent's purchase card review. Made the change. Those shall be subject to periodic review by the Board of Education. Also see in there that there's still a reference to the president, but I can assure you when it's published, that will be gone. Also, section 6, or attachment 6 on page 22. Are updated screenshots and instructions for end users. Are there any other questions that you all have about the purchase card manual or the purchasing manual?
That manual didn't come through.
I think this is just an informational item that you don't have to approve it. It's a departmental manual. I'm just supposed to explain it to you. So there you go.
We appreciate that.
Sure, no problem.
So did you hear that? No action needed. Just appreciate you doing it.
Very good.
Thank
And
you,
it will
sir.
be posted to the website probably within the next couple of days, this updated version.
Great. Next item, C, first read proposed calendar for New Stanley Elementary School. Dr. Faust?
I'd ask that the Kansas City Board of Education accept for the first read the 2019-20 calendar for New Stanley Elementary School as submitted by Alan King, Interim Assistant Superintendent, and as recommended by myself, Superintendent of Schools.
As you know, New Stanley is still on their year-round calendar or quasi-year-round calendar, same number of days as the other students, just at different times. They are looking at returning to the old calendar, but at this point, it's too late. We need to have parent and community input on that. When we left originally that calendar, we did that as well. So we're wanting to do that. So this calendar would still continue that schedule for another year, what they've been doing.
Dr. Faust, I'm not sure you were here. Mr. King, do you remember us having a discussion about this New Stanley schedule? Not continuing it early.
I don't remember that.
Okay.
So I did ask our board clerk about that, and there was just a discussion. It wasn't a motion for that. I think there was discussion. I think she can give you more insight.
Correct. So what would be the process of, if there were action taken to put all schools on the same schedule, therefore would choose not to, in the future, have an early start? What are you saying is the process?
Process is we would have to talk with the staff as well as community and parents there. And at this point, I believe, it's my understanding that with a calendar change such as this, it would have to meet with approval from the staff for sure in order to make the change at this late time.
Right, but moving forward, the board, I'm sure, has the authority to
Right, and so
make that decision.
So we're already discussing plans for the 2021 school year of this coming year, 1920, talking to parents, having those community meetings, and moving to going back to the traditional schedule that everyone follows.
So, and repeat what you just said?
That this coming school year, we would hold the community meetings and move forward so that in 2021, we could go back to the
But you have not started having those meetings yet?
No, not yet.
Just to further make it clear.
Yes.
Question. Why would the change be necessary? I'm just curious.
You don't remember the discussion we had?
No, I don't.
Okay. I believe we were discussing outcomes and test scores, and there were some additional cost. The record would not reflect the full discussion because we had extended discussions, but that those were some of the items that were discussed. Do you vaguely remember?
Vaguely remember, yes,
Vaguely.
thank you.
Ask. Yeah. He's the curriculum man. Ask him.
Well, I think when we had our last discussion and was doing the budget, when we looked, we were talking about test scores, and it seems like the schools that were going the regular time did somewhat better than these schools that were on these special schedules. So the concern was, maybe we need to put everyone on the same schedule. And that's how that all came about.
Right.
See, I wasn't hearing that.
You were there. I thought you said
I
you
came
weren't here.
late, so I don't remember. That's why when I asked you about it, I didn't remember.
So do you need a motion to approve of this?
You need a motion?
This is a first read right now, so I don't think it needs to be accepted as just the first read.
Next time you need a motion.
I make a motion that we approve.
No, you
No.
don't.
First read.
No, this is an awesome read, thanks.
It's a what?
You're just reading it. Okay, we've accepted the first read. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Consent item, consent agenda.
We finally made it.
Any items choose to be set aside?
Madam President, I'd like to set aside M and N.
M and N.
M as in mom and N as in no.
Okay.
Any other items?
I like to set aside C.
See, like cat?
Yes, like cats.
So we have C, M, and N. Any other items set aside? Need a motion to accept the consent agenda minus items C, cat, M, money, N, no.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passed. Here to talk about C now, or reserve it to
The
executive session?
Right, I have a question.
Make a motion to that, please.
I make a motion that we discuss section C in the executive session with personnel.
So, second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passed. MN? Ms. Humphries?
I set it aside because I cannot vote on it.
Okay. We're going to offer discussion, explanation, clarity?
Sure. I guess your question.
No, she set aside because she can't vote.
Vote on it.
Oh, okay.
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest, okay. So these two proposals are for E-rate equipment. What equipment that E-rate supports is pipelines to the internet for our schools. That's essentially what it is. What you're considering tonight are the two proposals for LAN switches and wireless access points. Okay, we put those out to bid. We got the bid results in, and we're going to make application to USAC for funding for those projects.
And USAC is acronym for what?
I'll do it right here. It's Universal Service Administrative Company.
Okay.
Okay, and it's overseen by the FCC, Federal Communications Commission. Okay, and so when you're approving the results of the bid, so we can make application to USAC for funding. And USAC provides, because we are a poorer school district, they'll provide us an 85% match, or 85% of the funding that we request, and we are responsible for the other 15% for those projects. And we're just making an application for funding. The request is a new initiative in the TIS director's budget. And it's, I don't know if he's presented it to you yet, but Joe's not here tonight. He's in California with his mom.
The, excuse me, the 15% will be included in our capital improvement budget for next year.
So is the 15% the 839 and 2 million? Or is that the total price?
We'll only have to fund 15% for each project.
Okay.
We are going to make application to USAC for the 85%. If unfunded by us, we will just withdraw the application or return the money if we are awarded it.
Okay. So is this the first time we've seen this?
Oh, yes, this is the first time. The bid results have come in. The evaluation committee has reviewed them, made their recommendation, and now we're bringing it to you for approval.
Right. Mr. Goheen, are we supposed to see bids prior to going out, or what?
I just want to.
Not prior to going out necessarily, but certainly are entitled to look at the bids if you want to look at the bids.
Are we to be notified that a bidding process will take place?
Not necessarily. As I understand it, this is for a grant application, is that right?
Essentially, yeah.
So this is dependent upon the grant being awarded, as I understand it. Does that make sense?
Correct. So you're saying in purposes of grants, we are not to be, there's no protocol that a bid is being solicited? Is this a bid?
Joe establishes his need, and then we work with an E-rate consultant to see what the funding possibilities are, and then we put the bid out, then the evaluation.
So just a normal bid process went out?
Bid process,
So
yes.
we're not to be informed prior to?
The board can be informed about whatever they want to be informed about, but.
If you don't know what you don't know.
I understand that, but I think the district bids a lot of things that don't come to the board until the bids close, and then the board approves the final bid or accepts the final bid.
How often does that, just for general conversation, how often does that happen?
I think you guys send out bids.
Yeah, we send bids out all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the regular course of business, is they're sending out bids on a regular basis for goods, services,
Right.
the whole 9 yards, and they only come back through the board when it's closed to be approved for the purchase. At least that's been the practice.
Good to know.
When was the last time the land equipment was checked or switched out? When was the last time
There were, back in 2016, I believe, was the last time that we'd done an E-rate related bid to land switches and wireless access points.
because we still have some partnership with Google Fiber, or no?
Yeah, there is still some of our locations.
So this wouldn't include our partnership with them?
You're asking me questions that probably the TIS director would have
Oh, okay.
better knowledge of.
It wouldn't be replacing the Google Fibers, no.
It does not.
Yeah,
No,
because-
It's everything in between Google Fiber and our building. It's the pipeline. to
Right,
the-
but I do know that the internet is slow in many areas and cannot hold the capacity
Yes.
that is required that we do need.
We don't have enough network switches.
No, we don't. I'm in agreement. I was just
Right,
wondering.
and the other one, the other piece is because our network is so slow, we need more data points.
Right, right.
So you're just approving this so we could, or we're asking that you approve this so we can.
Make application. Got it. We probably, Madam Westfall, need to take them separately?
Yes.
Okay.
I make a motion that we accept the proposal for the land switch equipment.
Item M. Second?
Second?
Moving in second, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, nay. Motion passed.
I make a motion that we accept proposal for the wireless access points.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept N. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passed.
Thank you.
I look forward to hearing the updates on that as well. That's an area of interest of mine.
Certainly. We'll let you know when we get the one.
Yeah, thank you.
I just couldn't
I
understand.
bet you didn't know that. Payment of bills. Questions?
You didn't vote on this, did you? You didn't vote on this. No.
Questions?
Susan knows.
She couldn't vote on the last two.
Don't put Jamie down, she couldn't vote.
No, but it's not. It just automatically records it on there, but I'll take those out.
Okay.
So I can't take them out until
Okay.
it won't be on.
She'll get you out.
I don't think that hurt you.
We need a motion to pay the bills.
I move we pay the bills.
Second.
Moved and seconded to pay the bills. All, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I oppose, nay. Motion passed. Thank you for being so tolerant with us. We now are moving into the first executive session at 8:55 for, this for superintendent. I mean, how much time? I'm doing 20? Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening. We'll still be here.
No, they said they want to stay with us. You don't have to go. Just stay here.
Don't go, don't go.
Need a motion for, none of them.
Belding, she said how long?
I need a motion for the board to recess to executive session at 8:55 for 20 minutes to discuss superintendent's evaluation pursuant to an exception for non-elected personnel under the Kansas Open Meetings Act. The board will return session with no action to follow.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Moving in second discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.